order the January 22nd, 2019 meeting of the North Andover Planning Board. Thanks everybody again for coming to our substitute location. We tried to hide from you guys, but you all found us. Mr. Boynton is running a little bit late, so we're gonna jump a little bit out of order to try to do some of the items. Some items we can hear with 3 members, some we can hear with 4 members. And so we're going to try to do some things we can do with 3. So we will do A&R Plan 2051 Salem Street, Ruth Richards Revocable Trust, care of Cleon Richards first. Request for an approval not required plan. Hop on up. Gentlemen, please introduce yourselves. Tell us where you live, and Monica will introduce what we're here to talk about.
Jr., and this is my son.
Cleon L. Richards III.
All right, Monica, can you give us an introduction?
Yes, we received an approval not required, an application to endorse an approval not required plan for 1251 Salem Street. The applicant seeks to actually add a lot line to transfer ownership of part of his parcel, which is seen. I'm sorry about that. We're a little off here. Reviewed the application and found that it met the minimum requirement of, actually it exceeds, it requires 1 acre lot and a frontage of 150. So, and it's located on Salem Street, which is a public way. So it's, in my opinion, that it meets the minimum requirements.
So it's, that part of Salem Street is R2?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And the thing, it's the one, it's at the bottom piece. Can you just outline what is the lot being carved out of the total parcel? Just.
Okay, so lot number 2, which you see here and circling it, that is the lot that is being carved out. So it's just over 1 acre.
Okay, I would presume there is no wetland on that, and that's the plan.
No, there's no wetland on that lot.
No.
One lot. No, one has.
Right.
Yeah. No, one's fine.
Mhm.
2. 2's the new one, right?
Right, 2 is the new one. You see
Yeah.
there's no
Does it
wetland
have,
located on
does
this
it
one.
have the CBA listed?
Yes, I'll bring that up. It is 45,583 square feet.
Oh, yeah, okay, good, okay.
It's 1 acre and 150 feet on Salem Street.
A little over an acre.
Yeah, it's just
A little over
over.
an acre, yep. Okay, so gentlemen, what are you trying to do there?
My dad actually is looking to get it approved so that he can sell it, possibly sell the lot for, potential house.
Single family house?
Correct.
Okay. Questions, anyone?
I think it's in good order.
Yep. So can we get a motion to allow the planner or associate planner to sign the approval not required?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Good job.
Great.
All right, good luck.
That's it?
That's it.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
So you'll need to get the Mylars and,
Could you
Yes,
come down to the office and do it?
that'd be perfect.
Thank you very much. Have a great night.
Thank you.
all right. All right, next item, we will do 234 Brentwood Circle, Sarah Goldsmith Schwartz and William Hannum. A waiver request for a watershed special permit under sections 195-4.136, 10.3, and 10.31. The applicant proposes to remove an in-ground swimming pool within the non-disturbance zone. Project is located within the R1 district. Hi.
Hi,
How are
I'm
you?
Carol Robertson from Gordon Imprint, and I am representing Will Hannum and Sarah Goldsmith Schwartz.
Okay, and Monica, these are the folks that no one could be here on the last day, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so Monica, why don't you introduce us to what's being requested, and then we'll hear from the applicants.
Excellent. Well, it's a waiver of a special permit. What they're seeking to do is to remove their existing pool. So that would entail actually taking out the liner, filling it in with dirt, bringing it to grade, and then loaming and seeding it.
Okay.
So it's kind of the opposite of normally what we see in a, they're bringing it to grade rather than removing grade.
Okay. So, I presume at some point it was like that before?
Yes.
Any issues that you see?
No, not at all.
Okay.
It was grandfathered in. The pool is quite old and it's crumbling.
And this actually was heard by conservation last month. Last month, they granted them a no declination. And since this is in the watershed, they came here as well just to receive determination.
Okay.
I guess the one question I would ask is, when you go around doing that, how do you actually physically do it?
The filling in of the pool.
Yeah, I
So-
mean, do you take all the material out?
Yes. It's
presume-
taken off-site. Clean fill is put in. I think it's 170 yards of clean fill. And then it's compacted in layers. The liner will come off-site. The paving around the pool will
Right.
come off-site. So it'll be clean and it'll go back to lawn.
Right, okay. And how long would it take roughly?
Well, it depends on the weather to a certain extent, but just a few days, we're hoping.
Okay.
Just a few days.
Okay.
What are you doing in terms of erosion control measures?
So we have it outlined on the plan there. The area that's in yellow is the area that, it's kind of a dull line that we'll be putting erosion control barrier.
If you follow the curve.
There's a slope towards the left side of the property. That area is the low spot. But we'll be providing.
When are you doing the project?
We've been trying to do it for a while now, so depending on the weather, as soon as weather permits.
So, Maya, these erosion controls seem okay?
Yes.
So it seems like we may want to approve the waiver condition
Yeah, I mean, I
on,
think it's fine to approve the waiver. I think that you should get a chance to do a visit to inspect it, and as long as you do that,
With the-
I think we should be fine.
What the waiver request entails is a pre-construction meeting, and then I make the 2 site visits, and then just make sure that everything is going correctly.
So,
So
Okay.
essentially, I'm kind of short-term site monitor.
make a motion to waive site plan review subject to the conditions that you outlined, Monica. Yeah, right, yeah. Thank you.
Second?
all right, so the motion is made to waive the watershed special permit, seconded, all in favor? Aye. Okay, so just follow those steps with Monica.
I will. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right, 722 Great Pond Road, Ronald Johnson Revocable Trust. Waiver request for a watershed special permit under sections 195, 4.136, 10.3, and 10.31 of the North Andover zoning bylaw. The applicant proposes replacing the existing second-floor deck with a smaller footprint within the non-disturbance zone. This is also an R1 zoning district. Hi,
Hello, Ron Johnson.
Ron Johnson, and you are from 722 Great Pond Road?
I am.
All right, Monica, what is Mr. Johnson requesting of us?
He's looking to replace an existing deck that is rotting, and what they would be using are 2 helical piles, which will be burrowed into the ground to create a support for these new decks. They're helical piles will be minimal impact, as they don't seem to create a lot of change in the topography. So they're seeking a request for a watershed special permit to do so.
So right now, the deck has no support, is that right? Looking at the pictures.
Currently, it's like a cantilever design, where the boards go into the house.
Oh, okay.
I guess over time,
I
water
gotcha.
is now getting in there.
Yeah, I'll bring
Yeah.
it
So the
up.
contractor wants to replace that with one that is supported by 2 support beams.
And what are those made out of, do you know?
I believe pressure-treated wood.
So as you can see, this is the existing
A steel
deck.
beam, and 2 columns.
And we've seen these before in
Right.
several recent waiver requests. And so any work would have to be hand dug, as not to disturb the soil. And again, this requires a pre-construction meeting as well as two site visits.
And they've been to conservation, correct?
Yes, and they received a negative determination.
Well, they're not hand digging a helical pile.
Well, they use a small
Yeah.
tool to dig a small hole into it, as not to disturb large amounts of soil.
Helical piles, that's a new one, I hadn't heard that one before.
Essentially, they're a big screw in there.
There you go. Makes sense.
Okay. I don't have any.
I think it's
Questions or
pretty
issues?
straightforward, yeah. I mean, I would make a motion that we waive watershed special permit for this project, subject to the conditions that Monica outlined.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
All set?
all set. Follow up with Monica with the meeting times and things like that.
Okay.
Great. Okay. Why don't we go into the town meeting zoning bylaw amendments? Why don't we start with voting capital? Are we doing anything with that tonight?
So in your packet, you received kind of a highlighted section 16 of the bylaw.
Okay,
The two uses proposed to date have been a bank and a cafe restaurant type use. At the last meeting, you entertained the thought of decreasing the minimum lot size to an acre as opposed to 2 acres, which is the same as across the street. The use regulations really restrict both the bank with the drive-through as well as a restaurant with a drive-through. And so I did some red line edits that I suggested, as well as highlighted in the CCD 1 across the street and 2,
okay.
a couple of the uses. And so I thought if you talk that through and decide if you're comfortable with a restaurant use, whether you would entertain a drive-through for that use. Where today that's very limited, and the bank, the same thing.
Okay. You kind of want to wait for Peter to have that. That's a pretty.
I haven't,
Yeah.
put a whole lot of thought into it. My general inclination is not to allow the restaurant drive-throughs at all, and to make, I think we could allow the other kinds, but I think it should actually use by special permit, not by right. I think the acre is probably okay in my mind. I think we could live with that, but
What are we? Hold on. Someone jackhammering?
Yeah.
No idea.
Well, it's a good stalling tactic.
Alright, so we'll just try to power through. So I'm
Calling maintenance.
I'm in agreement. I think I really I know Mr. Lowe talked about us to keep an open mind, and I think we should, but I really haven't heard a compelling reason why we would change the zoning to allow a drive-through restaurant, especially in this particular location. I know we're talking about the CDD in its entirety, but with the focus on this particular parcel, I really don't like the idea of a drive-through restaurant there. So I'm comfortable with the bank and the bank drive-through, but I don't really want to change it at this point to a drive-through restaurant.
Okay, so the red line edit here for the CBD to the banks are allowed as use
Okay.
without, all of those are allowed with without a drive-through. And I've done the red line edit to allow for a drive-through by special permit, John, as I think you
Yep,
I'd agree with that.
that makes sense. We want to make sure it's done right.
Yeah, and I think a traffic study
Right.
would be warranted specifically for this location, because I live somewhat near there. I know the issues that are there, and hey, all right.
Good job, gentlemen.
So I don't see the harm in making that more of a special permit to allow for that more of that data to come in to advise us when the time comes where any project gets put forth that there's no impact.
Right, I think there could be places in the CDD where a drive-through bank would not be appropriate. There may be places that are, I agree, that a traffic study and input from the neighbors and site plan and things like that of how it's going to work would be appropriate. And again, I don't have a problem with a restaurant. I just don't think it needs to be a drive-through. You know, if they want to do a restaurant, people want to get out and get coffee, that's okay. I think those survive too. Okay.
So would you consider across the street, which is CDD 1, now that we're lowering the acreage to be the 1 acre minimum, would you entertain a bank with a drive-through on that side as well?
I think we should entertain it, but the thing that would be helpful would be, could you check to see, and this may be a little bit difficult to do, how much front to back room there is when the parcel's there, given that they're small, there may even be smaller parcels, but there's wetland impingement too. So we ought to, you know, the problem is we don't want to give the ability to put the drive-through in there and then find out that they don't go back far enough to even accommodate it. So let's just do a little bit of checking. If there's a reasonable amount of space, then I think we would consider doing it. But if there's not, we may want to pass.
Okay. Okay, if you have any idea why Route 133 was included in the locations for CBD? So I've redlined 133 because we do not have a CBD zone there. It's 114 and 125.
I'm just trying to figure out what part of 133 would be. Where?
Just around the lake.
Well,
I
it
guess
goes from
Peter
like the
Street.
Y, then
Is
yeah,
there-
Peter
is
Street,
there
and then up
anything,
125,
though,
and
is-
then across.
Is there anything that is on that's commercial today?
Well, commercial Peter Street stretch, so 133 runs to Andover. So if you come up that and then becomes Andover Street and then around the lake. 133 starts
I
at.
don't think
Brooks's.
it ever came up. I have to think about it, but I don't think it ever came up, and I don't think there's enough parcels really.
It doesn't exist on that stretch today. There's no CBD stretch.
I'm not sure I would do it
Okay.
because there's no reason to do it.
Okay. So on J in CDD 1, leave the drive-through restaurant as is, which is restricted to 250 feet from the R6 zone. And then we move into CDD 2, bank with the drive-through by special permit, and then leave the drive-through restaurant shall be permitted within CDD 2, again, restricted to be 400 feet, more than 400 feet from a lawfully permitted residential dwelling
And
in
and
R3.
and are we keeping the 5 acre there too?
Yep.
So we're just not changing that, okay, yeah.
Right, so leave the drive-through restricted
Yeah.
as it is today.
Yep,
And then in the dimensional requirements, I'll do more research on the CDD 1 for that, John, for the bank. And the only minimum that I dropped was the CDD 2 to a minimum lot size of 1 acre. Leave the 250 feet of frontage on that side.
Increase
And
them.
then I made the maximum building coverage equal to the CDD 1, which is 50%,
okay,
since it has the same lot size.
okay.
Right, so
Alex,
So we have Alex, in addition, we had some submittal from John Zarico.
Yep,
Related to Mass DOT requirements.
yes.
Are you ready for me? I was waiting, you were having your discussion.
No, I think, anyone else have anything to say before we hear? No, I think we're good.
That's fine.
Okay,
Alex Loth, Bowden Capital, also 76 Ennis Street. So this is great. I think you're doing good work, not just for our parcel, but I think overall to make the zoning make sense, which is great, in CDD, just like you're talking about. Couple of thoughts and suggestions. This is the first time I'm looking at actually the red line version that you guys or Gene put together. I think that not only from my own perspective, because I mean I'd like to see a lot of as much flexibility as possible in this whole zone so that things actually do get redeveloped in the zone, and I've said that before. I think right now you've got a little bit of inconsistency in the restaurant portion of it between CDD1 and CDD2, and the question is whether or not that's intentional. In 2, you have 400 feet from a residence, 5 acres. In 1, you have 250 feet from the district, and no lot size restriction other than the zone. So a very different thing on opposite sides of the road. I don't know what the thinking is there or the reasoning is behind that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to look into, again, I think that it's the history of the parcels that were there and the rezoning that was done, and that's the way we ended up. I think it was because of one lot, which you know, how that came to pass.
Oh, right, this was, that's right, this was rewritten at town meeting at some
Yes.
point,
Yeah.
yeah. So I guess my suggestion is when you're looking at it, if you don't think that makes sense, then is that something that should be cleaned up so that the two zones align a little bit better? It may not help our parcel, but it may be something to look at overall. Again, 5 acres, 400 feet from a residence, 1 acre, 250 feet from the district. They're kind of two completely different things. The only other thing is you've got the lot size going down, which is good. Maybe the frontage should go down as well if you're going down to an acre. Because you have 150 feet in CDD1, but you still have 250 feet in CDD2. Now, the lots that we have on the corner, 250 feet is not a problem. It doesn't happen to be 250 feet on Route 114, but it is 250 feet of frontage.
So I measured each of them, and the 250 applied, and so it wouldn't have excluded anyone.
Right.
So that's why I left it.
Okay.
Yeah, but we ought to look at that, that's fair.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Yeah. I mean, I just look at all the other lots and see if it creates a problem, you know,
the 250,
the 250,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
and I've measured them, and I don't think it does, but
Okay,
I'll check it
that's
again.
fine. Okay.
No, but right. So, but the question is it worthwhile to go down to 200 or 150 just in general? For, I guess I'm not sure that we need to mirror because they are different, and I'd like to do as little as possible that makes things better, unless we're really fully studying the issue, which I don't know that we're going to fully do.
Fair.
I see. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? But so, if this goes as we've discussed today, passes town meeting, and then you come back, that would enable you to do your project and come to us for a special permit, correct?
It would enable us to do a project there, yeah.
Okay.
And come to you for a special permit.
do a
Because as you're
project.
saying, I think the bank would require a special permit, so you have the
Right.
opportunity to look
The
at
drive-through
any
portion, yeah.
the drive-through, which would enable you to look at any traffic concerns that the
Right.
neighbors or,
Yep.
which I think you could also do with a restaurant as well, that you have that ability through special permit process to say, yeah, this is going to work, it's not going to work. So I throw that out there as well. But that was my only,
Great.
And given these dimensions, there's no variances required for setbacks based on your conceptual.
right, yeah, because the front setback wasn't big in CDD, neither was the back, so
Yep.
we're in good shape. Thank you.
Great. Does anyone else wish to comment?
John Casey, 84 Inner Street.
Hi, Mr. Casey.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you board actually was proposing because of the heating system out
Sure.
back there. So I guess you're just cutting it down to 1 acre?
What's being proposed, right, and in the materials, which I believe are available and online, and we can also give you a copy, is a red line version. But the basics are cutting the CDD2 down to a 1 acre requirement, allowing for banks with a drive-through via a special permit. So it's not something you can do by right, but you'd have to come with a special permit. And we would not change anything having to do with our drive-through restaurant, so those rules all stay the same. And just changing the maximum building coverage percentage from 40 to 50%.
Does that go for like a coffee shop too? Would that be considered a restaurant, or
Yes,
it would be?
yes.
Okay. Okay, so it's just a drive-through bank? That's
That's,
a possibility?
I can't say all the different possibilities, but the only thing that's being changed, that we're suggesting to be changed under the zoning, it would be something that would potentially allow a drive-through bank.
Okay, can I make one suggestion?
Sure.
If you're gonna change the, down to 1 acre, please put something in the planning laws that you have to have the 2 acres at least to do a drive-through, period.
What type of drive-through?
Any
A
kind of
restaurant?
drive-through, any kind of drive-through. What it's doing is giving you enough room around it, and also enough room for the fire department to access the back of the building, okay? But it's also giving some space for any residents that are abutting the now CDD.
So the problem is that almost nobody can get 2 acres in this, and that's why we have the issue to start with. So we're keeping the frontage requirements, how much space that there needs to be, so we're keeping that. So to alleviate that concern, and we're making it a special permit instead of something you can just do, because we want someone who is proposing a drive-through to have to come back to us and show us traffic studies and show us what they're going to do in terms of lighting and show us, where everything is going to go, so that those concerns are addressed.
Okay, so the usage doesn't change from the CDD.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Great, thank you for your comments. Welcome, Peter. That's okay. Anyone else? Mr. Zarico. Thank you for providing these materials. We appreciate that.
Thank you. John Zarico, 182 Hillside. Thank you for all the updates and information on the website and here. Can I ask for clarification? So as I look at the changes and then the maintaining of the frontage, the 250 feet, is that lot frontage on any road, or is that just lot frontage on the CCD2 district, which is the corridor district, I assume, is Turnpike Street? Can that be clarified?
It's lot frontage is on a public way, and so I think you're referring to the hillside. Can I bring up that conceptual again?
Can be any public way.
That
So would
hillside-
be, so the 250 feet minimum frontage, it would include frontage on hillside and/or
Because
on
that
Turnpike?
parcel is within the CDD too, even though it
Yes.
fronts on hillside.
Okay, so those types of changes would potentially impact my lot, as if it's not part of that development. I stand to be isolated home on that area, which I don't want to be, and that was part of the discussions that went with the original CCD2 and CCD1 zoning. Is there any way to, the only corner in the CCD2 zone is at Hillside. Everything else is frontage on Turnpike. Is there any way to prevent my house from becoming isolated in that area, as through the verbiage that's being presented or changed?
Not that I can see. From what I can tell is if this zoning amendment passes has to go to town meeting, and if it passes at town meeting, what it would allow for is that based on what it is, and we're only really changing the acre requirement
Right.
from 2 to 1, that would potentially allow Minco to do a development on those 2 lots, not including your lot, and that could potentially be a bank with a drive-through if they get a special permit. It could be something else, but if they did a bank, then this would potentially allow for that.
So in that...
It also changes, the acre requirement throughout the district, so if
Right.
other people,
Right, no, and
get
it helps the rest of the district. The rest of the
Right.
district is strictly along Turnpike.
Right.
This is the only corner within that district, so I'm curious about how, the corner plays into the whole verbiage of the zoning, so that's,
it doesn't.
okay. So is there consideration to, I submitted some documents about the intersection layouts and commercial driveway curb cuts close to, a dangerous, uncontrolled intersection there. There's consideration, it's a public safety.
Yep, so-
Certainly more margin with included lots. My lot included would increase public safety in that area.
Yep, so I think that would be, so again, thank you for providing those. I haven't gotten a chance to read all of them
No,
yet.
nor have I.
But I think that would be part of the special, one of the reasons we're requiring the special permit for, say, the drive-through, is that we want to be able to talk about curb cuts and traffic and things like that, and police and fire access. That would be part of a special permit discussion, rather than a discussion really of the whole zoning throughout the district.
Okay.
So that would come at a later date, if
Okay.
this passes.
So, again, so my lot has the deeded access, which also reduces their usable space there.
Yep.
By a significant portion, 20% possibly even. So, if you look at the area, they're trying to shoehorn something into not a big area. It's now around 40,000 square feet, and it's really close to that intersection. So I just wanted to voice my concerns, and thank you for your time and consideration of my input and materials.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Zuko. So Peter, just as a recap, we did the A&R plan, we did 2 discussion items, and now we're just talking about town meeting potential article of Bowdoin Capital. We did go through it and discussed, at least for myself and John and Aaron, and Laura, I'd like to hear your opinion too, that we were comfortable with a bank use in this district, but a drive-through as a special permit, and none of us were comfortable with a drive-through restaurant.
Yep, I agree.
Okay. Okay, so I think we're all in agreement there. Alex?
And you moved my seat.
I did not move your seat. So I guess we'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
I could share this with Mr. Casey and Mr. Rico later, but just a point that was brought up about setback. I think one of the things that if we end up working with Mr. Zarico and adding his lot to this and doing something on a larger scale, that would be great. That was the original intent all along. But if we don't, what it does is it actually allows a little bit more of a setback from Mr. Casey's property, because we do have to respect, as he mentioned, that 15-foot easement. So we have a setback from the back lot line. We have that easement that is his driveway across there, which pushes things a little bit towards 114 and gives Mr. Casey's lot a little bit more of a buffer.
And that's something, certainly, if it ever came to a special permit, that we'd be looking at not only the traffic, but the lighting and noise, and should there be any trees or things like that. I mean, all that stuff we'd look at a special permit hearing.
Great, thank you.
Okay. So, Gene, we good with what we kind of looking for?
Yep.
Okay. Next step for this particular item?
So I'm going to do a little bit more research.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure everybody's comfortable that the 250-foot frontage applies to lots individually, irregardless of whether they get combined. And I'll get some depth information on the CDD 1 side.
Okay. So for anyone interested in this one, we'll keep it on the agenda for next time. Those really are, I mean, you can come and talk about anything you want, but that's pretty much what we're going to focus on the next meeting is whether some of the numbers on the CDD 1 side, whether we should change those to mirror CDD 2. We're going to be kind of more focused on that than on I think we're in agreement really what we want to see with the CDD 2.
So I've laid out a calendar, and I would hope that coming out of the February 5th meeting, we have a really good sense in terms of drafted warrant articles. If we want to proceed a month ahead of time for the town meeting warrant.
Perfect. Okay. All right. Great. So yes, Peter, your seat was moved. Unfortunately for us, Jennifer has decided that she is no longer going to be on the board. She just really couldn't, with her work and kids, she just couldn't handle the time commitment. She's been great over the last year and a half, so we will certainly miss having her. She added a great voice, but it's, we all spend a lot of time here thinking about it, and she worked really hard at it as well. So we will miss her, but that's why everyone got moved around a little bit. So if you're uncomfortable being center of attention, we can move you to the side.
Make the adjustment.
Okay. All right. So 4 High Street. I know they had a meeting they needed to get to. You guys want to jump in? All right, so we're gonna jump around a little bit. We're gonna go to continued public hearings, 4 High Street, RCG West Mill, NALC, application for a sub-district A definitive master plan special permit for phase 1. Okay. Hi.
Hi there. David Steinberg from RCG LLC with Tanya Hartford.
All right. Do we have anything new from last time? Okay. Monica, anything new?
At the last meeting, you asked me to prepare a decision
Okay.
that should be in your packet.
Great.
I hope you had a chance to review it.
So, but in terms of information, new information, okay? Any new questions from the board? Is there any members of the public that wishes to have any input? Okay, do you guys want to have a discussion about the draft before or after we close the public hearing? Might make sense to go through it, see if the applicants have any questions or issues, see if we have any comments, and then after that, close the public hearing and vote. Hearing no objections, that's what we'll do. Have you had a chance to read the draft?
Yes.
Any questions, comments, problems? Everything's hunky-dory. All right. Just gotta
So you want a motion to close the public hearing?
Well, why don't we look through the draft just to see if there's anything that we have like factual questions about? That way we can have them as part of the public hearing. If not, if there are no factual kind of questions, then we'll close it. Just trying to find this in my packet.
You need copies and extras.
Yeah, do you have an extra? I can't seem to find mine.
Should have an extra.
Oh, I got it. Let me ask you guys, assuming this gets approved, what's next?
On this is phase one of our sub-district A. So if this is approved, we would start to work on phase two of the
Okay.
sub-district A and what would happen on the additional lots there, essentially.
I remember from a couple weeks ago, I guess the major topic of discussion was more towards the street parking that some residents and employees of businesses use, that they're supposed to use the parking lot. Nothing I can't remember anything specifically regarding the parking plan on premises.
No, I think the people rightfully pointed out that this is more of a precursor to phase two, which will have a bigger impact. So we're not really there yet, but again, I would encourage you guys as much as we can to work with the police and the administration to facilitate that flow of traffic. It's not really part of our decision today, but certainly worth talking about. Okay, can we get a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll do so.
Can I just
Sure.
ask a question first?
Yes. That's why we kept it open.
This is a very small point, but in paragraph 13, it says a total of 837 spaces. But when you add up the separate numbers outlined, it comes out to 839, 2 extra spaces.
That's because we are required to have 837, but we will have 839.
Okay, fine, thank you. That was my question.
837 is required. Okay. All right, so can we get a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll do so.
Someone want to second that motion?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, all in favor of the motion to approve the Sub-District A definitive master plan special permit for 4 High Street.
I'll make a motion
Yeah,
to
For phase one.
approve the
yeah, that's good. Just do that first
Sub-District A definitive master plan special permit for
For-
4 High Street.
For phase one.
for phase 1. Second? I'll second. it, sure.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. Okay. Monica, who's going to be speaking about 350 Grape Pond Road?
That'd be Mr. Burke.
Okay. If it's okay, I think I'd like to do 1665 Great Pond, the 800 Mass Ave one. We'll do that first. I think we have more people here on that. We'll try to get through that, get everyone out of here to normal-ish hour. So why don't we do that, and then we'll go to 350 Great Pond, and then 1874 Turnpike wanted to be last, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I think we can accomplish that. Oh, and I'm sorry, 495 Main Street, we could do that one as well. Okay. Okay, so let's do Mr. Zarico, 800 Mass Ave project. Hi.
Hi, Tom Zarico, 1665 Great Pond Road. Missed you all. Thank you for having me back again. I know this comes under the heading of potential zoning warrant articles, but I put together a new proposal that wouldn't require that. You've seen some of the details in the materials that I've submitted, but pending the reaction and the response and the feedback on this revised or new proposal, I think it follows along that we spent so much time in this forum that we should continue this dialogue, whether it requires a town meeting warrant article or not. So if I can just summarize quickly, or just sort of step back for a second, for anybody who might not have been here before or heard some of this presentation, I know it seemed like a long time since this proposal for 8 townhouses was brought forward for the 800 Mass Ave building. It was only in October. We've had quite a bit of intense dialogue about it here and otherwise outside of the public hearings. In the course of these couple of months, not only did we hear loud and clear, or did I hear loud and clear, a lot of the concerns and issues and questions and things that people had, but also in the course of those 2 or 2.5 rainy months, we were gathering additional engineering information, refining the information. It was very difficult in most of October, November, and early December to get the survey crews out to accumulate the site conditions and evaluate what exactly exists on that site. In the course of that couple of months, and around the time of the last meeting that we had in early January here, I came up with this concept for a new approach to this project and to this property that I think, at least from my perspective, and I hope from everybody else's perspective, tries to gain consensus, tries to minimize, if not eliminate, most of the issues or questions or concerns that everybody's had, not just the board, but the immediate neighbors, the Historical Society, and the greater community. It does require some decision-making by the planning board, by zoning, but I think those decisions are relatively routine. But as I go through it, I'd just like to have everybody keep in mind that what I'd like to see and what the society would like to see is a support for this concept and for the process that needs to follow to get to this conclusion, and hopefully to make everybody have everybody feel good about it. So with that in mind, Jean or Monica, can you pull up, I don't know if you have these draft sketches, just to start with. There's a couple of sketches here. These are relatively elemental. This is a partial site existing conditions plan that really just has some elemental data here. That information, again, sort of was enhanced and refined over the course of a few months. But once I saw the details of wetlands, details of topo, details of the area that was there, the relationships of the buildings to each other and everything else, came up with what I think is a relatively straightforward kind of a plan for disposition of the property. This site, it turns out, has 76,200 square feet, which in R3 allows as much as 3 lots. There is, as everybody knows, plenty of frontage. There's frontage along Academy Road, along Mass Ave. And the site, which you can see there, unfortunately, the red line, proposed lot lines or theoretical or proof lines don't show up that well. But those 3 lots, one being primarily to the bottom left-hand side, which is the Rogers Building, then lot, which is called lot number 2, up to the top of the page, and lot number 3, which includes the headquarters building. All of those in that formation comply. Obviously, it's not ideal to run a lot line through the back of the building that we're trying to preserve. This was just a proof plan to show that there's area, there's frontage, there's CBA, and it can be done. I didn't spend a lot of time, and I didn't instruct the engineers or surveyors to spend a lot of time refining that. But as everybody knows, the annex in the back of the building was intended to come down in any case. And that lot line that bisects the building a little bit in the back could be pulled back. Area could be gained in Lot 2 by stealing a little from Lot 3, and Lot 3 could be reconfigured to gain a little bit of area to make it compliant. It could gain a little bit from lot number 1. Again, it's a proofing exercise because this isn't what we want to do. We just wanted to show the viability and prove the density, if you will, under the current zoning. Next, thanks, Gene. This site plan shows a more beautiful and reasonable lotting arrangement for these 3 lots. Each one of them, well, actually, the headquarters building would be totally compliant in terms of 25,000 square feet, plenty of frontage, and setbacks according to zone. The Rogers Building is the larger of the lots on Lot 1 in this case, in this proposal, would require a variance for setback relative to the side lot line along the headquarters building common line. That lot line on the Lot 3 headquarters building is a rear lot line because it's across from all frontage lines, so that requires a 30-foot setback. If there's a different interpretation from this board about that being a side lot line, then the requirement for, or the need for a variance for 3.4 feet of setback on the Rogers Building disappears. That's a judgment call that I wouldn't expect or necessarily plan for that to happen, but in any event, we tried to make the headquarters building in this concept plan compliant in all ways. That results in a slight variance needed of 3.4 feet for the Rogers Building relative to its lot line. And similarly, in order to maintain setbacks around the Rogers Building to be compliant with 30-foot setbacks to the rear, lot number 2, which is in the proof plan is a standard conforming 25,000 square foot lot with plenty of frontage, would be minimized down to just over 20,000 square feet. And that parcel would be a potentially nice building site, but is proposed and dialogued to be a preserved open space lot. The idea behind the creation of this is to establish value, which is one of the goals and obligations of the society with the assets that they have, but then also find a viable way to preserve the building. Lot 2 in this concept idea could have a conservation restriction placed on it, ideally funded by the CPA, or if not, some other conservation organization, but that being the most likely vehicle. And then the ownership of that parcel could either remain with the Historical Society could go to the town, or could revert back to the ownership of the Rogers building when that is sold, with restrictions on it, of course. So it would strictly be surplus land to that owner. Whatever best practices would dictate on that. The Rogers building would be offered up for sale, or proposals solicited, with consideration given to priority goals, including preservation and revitalization of the building and the site, use consistent with zoning, which, as we know, we've had this lengthy discussion about zoning. It seemed apparent through this process that commercial activity was not going to happen there. That was not well received, I think, by any constituency. Higher density didn't seem to be well received either, even though housing is a big thing in my world. I understand that, but so when we go back to its current zoning, which is really what we're left with a house or a museum or a church, essentially. But there's still a huge amount of work that needs to be done to that building. So it's most likely, and in my estimation, with current zoning, going to be a single-family home.
What would be done with Lot 3? Say,
Lot 3 is the headquarters building. That would stay exactly as is and retained as the headquarters building for the Historical Society.
so this idea is the Rogers building gets sold, new owner takes over, zoning stays the same, they can do anything that anyone can currently do with zoning.
Correct.
Okay. So nothing changes there. The lot in the back, potentially protected by, is left as open space, and then the headquarters stays the Historical Society headquarters.
Right, that's correct.
No zoning changes, and the potential of a minor variance from the zoning board.
Yeah, two minor variances. Well, I consider them minor variances. That there's routine, or there's many precedents for those to be issued. Obviously, they're discretionary; they don't have to be issued. But again, there's many precedents for those kind of variances to be issued in many circumstances in town.
I still think it's a side, not a back, but that's,
Oh, you do? Well, and you know, that's interesting, because I was being very conservative in my evaluation and analysis of that. If that's a side lot line, then that may minimize the variance needs.
Yeah.
So-
Because you have enough frontage for that lot on Mass Ave anyway, and that's where the entry would be anyway, so you can make the argument it's a side lot. I think it's pretty much a slam dunk.
Okay, well, that's good.
For a side lot for the museum? The
Yeah,
headquarters building?
For the headquarters building, yeah. Yeah, because there's enough frontage on Mass Ave to make that the front, not the side. And I believe when stuff wraps around the corner, you have the option under zoning
Okay.
to put the frontage, call it where you want.
Okay, that would be helpful in the process. Gene, if you could go, or Monica, whoever's scrolling, if you could go to the next.
For the lot area one, are you considering that a variance, or the
Yes.
A&R plan would be not a buildable lot?
No, that would be, the reason why we'd want to, I think, as a practical matter, seek the variance is because that really is what, I mean, it being a building lot is really what establishes value, which is what helps the society. I mean, that's you know, that's sort of part of why this not being a multi-unit project may make sense, because
Right. I mean,
because the value
point
is established.
Even if you had, that, you could carve up these lots, the Historical Society and its own could have carved up these lots and created a 25,000 square foot building lot. Could
That's
have
right.
done that at any point in time.
That's right.
And I think what this will do is it'll, if you think about the CPA article that we passed, I think it was 2014, where we had conservation restrictions on basically every other open lot on Academy Road, this finishes that. This protects the last piece of potentially buildable land on Academy Road.
Yeah, yeah. And obviously, the idea would be to restrict through the CR that lot too, the open space lot, and also to restrict what happens to the Rogers building. Make sure that there are, whatever those appropriate constraints and covenants are in place, to make sure that, in addition to the controls that we have in place in the community anyway, meaning the Historical District Commission and this board and everybody else in terms of any permits that would be issued, the intent would be to make that more constrained, to make sure that whatever happens there is done in the way that not only the current owners, but the rest of the community feels ought to be done. I mean, I think this proposal is relatively straightforward. I think it accomplishes most, but not one thing that Peter had mentioned last time. Did the best we could to try to preserve the exterior appearance of the Rogers Building, which is what the society wants and what I think a lot of people, if not most people in town, want. I mean, we know the building, we're comfortable with it. It certainly minimizes traffic concerns. It pretty much virtually eliminates them because it's as low impact a use other than a hayfield as you can have. It minimizes noise and light pollution, and again, those are things that can be constrained with covenants and restrictions as well. So that can be given some guidance and control, and eliminates the issue of housing density and change of character. Nothing would change visually. Nothing would change. It eliminates the debate over my legitimacy as a potential purchaser. And it provides an opportunity, obviously, to preserve the open space in that lot. Achieves fair value for the Historical Society, which is also as important. I think all of these things have equal or similar importance, and it eliminates the need for a zoning change. So.
What's the one thing? And you raised this.
I was hoping you'd ask. You know, I thought you were going to sit over there, though. No, you mentioned, and you were very passionate about your comments last time, Peter, about this, although it isn't a public space, it kind of feels like one.
Yeah.
And it's never been a, quote, a public space as of right, if you will, but it's always felt that way to all of us. You know, maybe that's the one thing that has to change a little bit. Doesn't mean that some very deliberate planning can't be done and some very, I guess, sensitive landscaping and design work by a responsible purchaser to keep the community tied to that building without violating the privacy of an owner. I mean, I think that's something that can be done with a variety of, you know, visual and aesthetic, you know, delicate measures as that building sort of ties back into the common. So,
well, maybe I can just ask from just your perspective as a developer, which I think we've all said publicly we respect. With respect to that one thing, which I think was common use rather than public use, does this work if it's in the other direction? In other words, instead of a purchaser purchasing the Rogers to turn into a single-family house, a purchaser purchases the current headquarters to turn into a single-family house, and the Rogers minus the annex becomes the new Historical Society headquarters. And I know that's not your call. I'm asking a different question. It's very similar, 3 parcels, but the building that had a common use under that scenario would still have a common use as Historical Society, display, offices, etc. And the current headquarters, which is kind of like a house, for a house. And it's different,
yeah.
But does that, were that to be the choice, does that work from the developer's perspective?
Here's what I would say on that. I mean, I don't think it's an unreasonable thing to think about. That building, the Rogers building, needs so much work just to get it to the point where you can actually. I mean, we're not talking $50,000 or $100,000. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars just to get it back to a healthy, you know, not even occupiable, but enterable sort of a space.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of challenges there. So if the assets were sold, either 2 of these 3 assets, if you will, were sold, virtually all of that would go to fixing that facility.
Right.
And then, I mean, if we accomplished something, yeah, but we've really not accomplished, everything. And I think that's the challenge, is, that building has issues. Everybody who's been there knows. I mean, from my perspective, the basement is not wet from runoff. The basement is wet because of its elevation. That needs to change, needs to either disappear or be modified dramatically just to make it functional and safe and habitable in any form, whether it's as a residence or as a place of assembly or whatever. So I think it's an interesting concept, but I think the gain, if you will, of the work and the effort that goes to trying to responsibly dispose of assets gets virtually wiped out in the process. So that's my perspective on it.
But your plan would allow for either, though, right? I mean, if someone came in and said, I want to buy the Historical Society building for a large fee, I mean, it would work. This plan allows for both of those, even though financially it may not be feasible.
Right.
The plan, I mean, I think the plan is elegant in its simplicity, right? It's going back to the basics of, yeah, I can make 3 houses here right now if we want to, but we don't want to make 3 houses. We'll have some open space, keep a Historical Society building that is really low impact but important to the community, and then have one single family house. I think it really listens to the concerns and makes the best out of a really difficult situation. So I think it's a very good way to go about this. And in terms of an A&R, if you come before us, we're not looking at what you're going to use it for or any of those things. Our decisions are, is there enough frontage, and is it safe, and do you have the proper acreage? That's it. We don't put conditions on it. So to the extent you want to put historical covenants and UCPA, all those things I think we can talk about, and I would support. But an A&R is simply doesn't meet the standard. So,
right. And we would still need to juggle that interplay of this board and zoning for the even if the side lot line, rear lot line thing were resolvable without lengthy discussion, we'd still need to pursue that variance for that area. Just again, there's ugly ways of creating these lots with various jigsaw puzzle kinds of pieces, but in order to make them look as nice as they do on paper and in reality, we'd still need to get that variance. And I don't know if that would be, I think that would be prior to the A&R, that would precede the A&R or run concurrently typically.
I don't think you can give a variance on a lot that is not in existence yet, and so I think it's a technicality. You think an A&R not building lot is required, and then a variance to that to create it.
Probably run that concurrently if we pursue that, and then make sure that we're not missing anything as we close hearings, I would think. But again, that was the idea, that was the concept.
I mean, I could say I supported the previous plan because I thought it was the best proposal that was before us, and it made sense. And I think I just think this makes even more sense. So I think you guys did a really good job, Tom, of continuing to work through the discussions and the critiques and the commentary and the positive feedback as well to find something that, and maybe everyone won't like it, but you can't please everyone all the time, right? And we don't please a lot of people a lot of the time, but this is a really good compromise. So thank you.
But is this something the Historical Society wants to pursue? Because if I remember correctly, you decided you resigned from the board of the historic. So who are you representing?
Who am I representing? That's such a good question right now. I am an unpaid consultant and facilitator, I guess. So I really. I propose this as a citizen, as a resident. I don't have authority to make this happen.
So that's a good segue.
Good transition.
Hi, Stan.
Hello, Stan, number 43 Stone Cleave Road. Let me answer your question, Aaron, by saying Mr. Zarico came to a special board meeting we held last week, and he gave us this presentation, and we agreed unanimously to support him going forward with it to see if we can make all these moving pieces fit into the puzzle here. So we are in complete support at this point. There's a number of steps we'll have to take, as you have all heard about the process. It will require at some point a membership vote to actually sell the property. The membership has the only authority to sell real property that's owned by the society. So we'll have to get to that point. But we, much like what you said, Mr. Goldberg, of all the things that we've seen, this is probably the best. So in this long evolution of getting from where we started out to this probably turns out to be the best solution anyway. So we're very pleased that we got this far and it's gone this well.
But you know what, I don't think you would have gotten here if you didn't have the townhouse's proposal, because it got other people to come to your meetings and come to this meeting and say, hey, what about this? What about conservation? What about these things? And so just coming in with a legitimate proposal, even one that wasn't universally supported, I think got you to this place. So
well, and the other thing that I would
important.
say is that it continuously challenged Mr. Zarico's tenacity to stick with this project and continue to try to find a solution here. And it was really due to him that we've gotten where we are today. He wouldn't give up. So we thank him for that.
Okay. I don't know why I'm asking this. Does anyone want to come up, since you've been here so many times, and say something regarding this proposal? It is still a public hearing, so if anyone wants to say anything, come on up.
I promise to be very brief.
Okay.
And I sent you some, I'm not going to refer to those, just to be particularly brief. The first time I spoke to you about this, I said it surprised me to be speaking against something the Historical Society proposes and something Tom proposes, because I have ties to the Historical Society and long admired Tom's work. But the facts have changed, and my view is people will and should support this plan if the Historical Society permanently preserves and protects the open space. That is Lot 2. I think the preservation of the historic rural character of Academy Road is a key component, and that benefits those of us that live near or on Academy Road, yes, but it also benefits those that follow us that live in those houses years from now. I won't be living on Academy Road 100 years from now, but somebody else will, and some other families enjoying walking along Academy Road in the Old Center are going to enjoy that open space. The preserved and protected land east of Mass Ave is relatively new. So between the town common and Wire Hill, all that protected open space is relatively new. And it started in 1997 when Bob Stevens protected the Loring House at 84 Academy Road. And the house and the lot are protected by Historic New England. The acreage around it is protected by, I will pull that check.
I knew you would.
Means I go on a little longer. And that area also protected the land across the street, which is labeled Lot E. So if you see all that yellow between the town common, which I labeled B, and Wire Hill at the top, all of that is relatively new within the last 22 years. And that parcel by parcel, that ribbon of open space was protected in 2006, 2009. In 2014, the town purchased 3 lots. I labeled them C, G, and K. Also, lot, I think I labeled it J and K at 140 Academy Road was protected. That land can't be developed thanks to Historic New England, and Lot K is protected with a conservation restriction on it as well. Lot L was the very last parcel. That's the big parcel you'll see 2014. Ann and Ed Stevens donated that to T2R. And I remember getting the phone call from TTR when they got the signature. I said, "Run, don't walk to the registry of deeds and get that recorded." The result of this, if you go to the next slide, the result of this is something like this. We get the Stevens to Stevens trail. That wouldn't have happened. Of course, it would on that map, but if you go further down, that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for all these pieces being put together. So I think this plan, should Lot 2 be preserved, continues that legacy of preservation. So with that secure, I think the plan should have support. It preserves the Carolyn Stevens Rogers building. That's important to some people. It protects the historic rural character of the old center. It is consistent with the Historical Society's mission, which says the Historical Society supports and promotes the architectural and landscape heritage of the town, and it provides some resources to the Historical Society. Those are my brief comments.
Thank you, Mr.
Abridged, too.
So, seems like you have the support of this board. Seems like you have some community support. What would you like us to do with the zoning article that we have?
I guess it's my job to ask to withdraw it since I submitted it or requested it.
So we'll take it off the agenda for now. If
Yeah.
something changes, let us know. But I think this is a great way to go about it. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you all very much, too.
All right. Man, what are we going to talk about next week? All right, so let's do 350 Great Pond Road. You do that one. Why don't we take well, let's let everyone who doesn't want to stay for the remainder, we'll take a 1-minute recess. And we'll get to 350 Great Pond Road.
It's a long cord, right?
Tonight, but you know. Yeah. Okay, we ready? All right, we'll continue with continued public hearing, 350 Great Pond Road. Hi, welcome back.
For board, 350 Great Pond Road.
All right. So Monica, where did we leave off and what do we need to do tonight?
Meeting, again, we discussed an application for a watershed special permit under section 195-4.17 and 195-10.7 of the Town of North Andover zoning bylaw. The applicant proposes replanting of landscaping in the non-discharge and non-disturbance zone. The project's located in residential 1. We opened the hearing last meeting, but we ended because we needed clarification as to what the applicant was seeking.
Okay.
During the hearing, initially it was a replanting plan, an after-the-fact replanting plan was discussed. However, the applicant asked for consideration of several patios in the area, and 2 of the patios are existing, and 1 is a one that was proposed. So you asked us to go back and discuss
What?
this.
Okay.
So I sent some correspondence and received a reply actually yesterday.
Okay.
Stating that the applicant was interested in pursuing the patios, including a new one that is a 10 by 10 slate patio. And again, that came yesterday, so we haven't really had a chance to discuss what comes next.
Is it in here?
The original, it's still the original plan. We have no new information except now that he's interested in not only just the replanting, but also the construction of, reconstruction and construction of some patios.
And so where do we stand with the replanting? I think we were trying to figure out where some of the trees that came down, if those were the ones being replaced, and then we were talking about the native species. Did we come to any conclusions on that?
We have not had that, unfortunately, have not had the opportunity to have that
Well, we were
discussion.
talking about how many trees came down from the non-disturbance.
Right, and this-
Because there's
right.
trees taken down there and then outside of that as well. So we had that discussion 2 weeks ago. But, yeah.
I don't
remember anything being concluded from that.
No, it's to my understanding that as long as a like number of trees were planted, the board found that acceptable. Also within the 250, the board sought to have native trees and shrubs planted. So the landscape architect would have to submit a new plan, considering that some of the base plantings around the house contained non-native plants, and that would just be reviewed by conservation to see if that was okay.
So Monica, in addition to, like number and native in the non-disturbance, I think we also had a discussion about comparative size, and I think the board felt that, you're not gonna replace an 80-foot tree with an 80-foot tree. I mean, it's possible, but that's kind of beyond. But my impression was the board was not looking for, an 8-foot shrub to replace a 70-foot tree. That it should be like type in terms of if a big tree is taken down, something is going in that's more than an 8-foot shrub.
So it sounds like you want a shrub, not a shrub, but a tree that would grow into a
Well,
certain caliper that matches maybe what was
I don't want to
there.
get into those kind, I don't think
I
we
mean,
need to get
you know,
into those.
yeah, I mean,
It's just that, it shouldn't end up being a hedge where large trees were taken down in the no disturb zone.
I mean, our normal practice is to replicate it at a higher than a 1-to-1 ratio for the exact reason that you said, is that you're not going to be able to replicate it with the same size. So therefore, what you do is you add more trees of a relatively smaller size, but not a puny size, is the fair way to do it. And I mean, I want to be fair, I don't want to be punitive here, but it may be a little bit more of an indirect, okay, we took 10 down, we'll put 10 up. If you take something that's this big and replace it with something that's this big, it's got to be more than a 1-to-1.
Well, it's more about the soil structure, the roots holding
the
soil together so you don't get the erosion.
Right, no, you're right, yeah. And
So I guess that
yeah.
goes along with your
Yeah.
more than 1-to-1 ratio.
Yeah, it's funny. This is what happens when you're bachelor. And I was watching the Science Channel with something, and that there was something they showed of somebody built a resort on a hilltop and denuded the hilltop, and then 5 years later the hill started coming down for that very reason, because the roots, were gone for the trees and everything, and nothing to hold the soil back and everything. So that's really what we want, is to be able to, a robust root system in place so that the soil stays where it is.
So we're looking for, how would we characterize it? So we said like amount or more?
I mean, I think, again, I'm not an expert in this, but I would lean to a little bit higher than a 1-to-1 ratio if we're going to replace, 80-year-old mature trees with smaller trees. But keep it reasonable.
I don't see us putting in shrubs and little, we want to do Canadian hemlocks and just real, whatever, you say 80-foot trees, but I mean, realistic, 50,
Fine.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't want to leave the lot naked, you know what I mean? We want to kind of put it back to, like,
So, I mean, here's what I'm getting at, John, is, if a year from now, someone on the board was driving by and, you know, there's a row of 8 blueberry bushes. That doesn't
That
cut it.
doesn't cut
No,
it,
that's,
yeah.
that's,
And so I'd like to have something that gives the board recourse, and
Correct.
based on what we're hearing, we're not gonna see that, but we should have something that says it's not gonna be 8 blueberry bushes.
right, but in our plans, which, if you read, I don't know all the names of every tree. but
Sure.
My landscape architect does.
Yep.
And it looks like, from what I remember, the count was like 35 trees, but, you know, that's just a number that comes off my mind, but it's just gonna be work in progress, that's it.
Although your landscape architect was here tonight,
No, it was conflict.
I have the landscaping to do. Okay, so I want to deal with the trees. I mean, I think if we approve it conditioned on, you know, a like amount of trees of a like size and type in the non-disturbed zone and native trees in the non-disturbed zone, I think we're pretty much comfortable with that. And as really is basically outlined by the plan, maybe come back in a year or have a field visit in a year so that we can confirm, you know,
Sure.
that everything is as it is.
I'm up for that.
That's fine.
Yeah.
So is everyone pretty much good with that? Okay.
Where's the extra patio? Which one on the drawing is the
So this,
additional one?
this on front, there is currently a walkway, and it says over here, there's a note that says
So
remove
are you
old walkway.
saying this is
here.
the additional one?
This is the new additional one that's
Okay.
been proposed, and it's not currently there.
Additional patio, is that what you said?
Yes.
Yeah, basically what that's gonna be is, it's gonna be slate, like 1-inch slate, which actually used to be for a walkway where the old front door was, and we're reusing it to just to make a flat area for a patio. Now, I might have to get a few more, you know, to buy, but in the brick, the same thing. It's all just going to be relifted and put back down because it's been squished for, whatever, 40 years, and it's out of place. But the bricks are basically going back into the same spot, except where the patio is, we'll just make like a square, 10 by 10 or whatever it's going to be,
So,
with slate. And we're not digging underground and making big holes. It's basically just be placed down.
Right, but so the couple issues are, one, just procedurally, I'm not sure that that's fully part of the application, and we have to have a public hearing about it, and I'm not sure that it's been fully advertised as such, that it's just a procedural thing. But two, I mean, would we need the water discharge and storm system and all that kind of evaluation?
Yeah.
How would we normally do it?
normally we would do a review. For something like this, we might have the town engineer review it, but again, because you are talking about, while it could be considered permeable, it can change the rain runoff, and we want to make sure that it's being at least channeled in the correct location. It can handle, a 1-inch rainfall, something to that. So maybe something like a 10 by 10 inch patio might not require an extensive infiltration system, but it might be beneficial to have some type of trench or rain garden or something like that would help to.
If this was something that was applied for on its own, just the patio, could you request a waiver of the watershed special permit?
No, because there is going to be ground disturbance
Okay.
generally with
All right.
patios, and I did talk to Bill just to get the procedure correctly. If you can
Yeah.
see up in the top corner, there's some details about what would be there. So you would dig down, you would put your gravel, you put your fabric, and then your gravel and your sand, and you tamp it down, and so that does involve some change in the grading, just to make sure that ultimately you end up with a flat patio that's going to last.
So it seems to me that the best approach may be to approve the permit in terms of all the trees and things like that. Get your approval, you can do that, and then have a separate application for the patio, because it's going to need some of the stormwater review, and then just to come just on that, which should be a pretty simple one, but I don't think we're in a position we can approve it today, and I'd like to get you done with the trees and get all that squared away. What do people think?
Whatever the applicant
I just got a
desires.
question though.
Yeah.
This, like, this patio isn't like, construction, like, it's not gonna be, it's just gonna be placed down slate, which, there used to be a walkway to the front door. I have all those slates, I picked them up.
Yeah.
I have them on a pallet. I'm gonna reuse these almost near where the walkway is. I just, like I said, it's not a huge project
no,
that
no.
we're doing. This is just a
So-
simple slate to put down and a few chairs outside, you know what I mean?
So what was the area of the old walk that you took up?
What's that?
The physical area?
It was to the front door.
Yeah, but what, no, I mean, in terms of dimensionally, the area, 10 square feet, 50 square
What,
feet?
for the,
The old walk that you said you took
it was
up.
about, probably about 25-foot walk.
By-
From the driveway all the way to the front door. The front door was kind of,
By about 3 feet.
what's that?
By about 3 feet, like a normal walkway.
Yeah, exactly, right,
So it
3
was
feet, I'm
on
sorry.
on the neighborhood of 75 square feet, essentially 25 by 3.
Correct.
So what's the area of this proposed patio?
Well, I don't know what is proposed, I mean, because we're not there yet. You know, we'd like to use the slate that we have to just,
We're talking 10 by 10. So-
correct.
So it sounds like a little bit more in area.
Right, but we're not gonna, this isn't gonna be an enormous patio with furniture, and, you know, I'm talking just a little cookout spot, you know what I mean?
What happened with the old walkway? Is that planned to fill it in?
There's no front, well, the dirt just
So-
basically just settled.
And particularly construction
Plus,
started on the
I'm gonna
project.
Oh, it did.
Right.
put grass in.
Right, during the house building phase, and that was something that didn't require approval, so we don't have like pictures of the walkway beforehand or anything like that.
So go back, so would this have required, would it have been done with the with the house, would it have required approval?
What they applied for with the house was not, let me see, was just the rebuilding of the house itself. Anything involving the patio, they would have had to come to us.
Yeah, we didn't, this patio just came about as we go, oh, we should put it here, you know, because we moved the front door to where the old garage was.
Yeah, no, it's not that it's a bad idea, and I think you're using the slate that you have is a good idea. It's just a question of, do we need to consider whether or not doing that will have some sort of impact on erosion and water going down into the lake, and I just don't know the answer to that.
That's all right.
If I knew that it was no, then I'd say, go ahead, yeah. But that's what I want to get clearance that this isn't gonna have any impact, and we can say, go ahead and do it. That's.
But I think more to your point is that since it wasn't advertised as including this, that we've either got to split the decision or amend the application.
Right. And I mean, and I don't think it's anything that anyone in the public really has any interest in. So if we're all comfortable with it, then we can make an amendment, but I'm not sure that I'm there. And Peter, John, you guys have been on longer. Is this something you think? I don't want to have to go through extra steps just to go through steps. But if there is the possibility that this could have some impact, that's just.
I mean, that's exactly what it comes down to, is what is the materiality and what is the potential impact, and it, frankly, it feels sort of a little bit loosey-goosey and how all the pieces fit together. I can't even begin to tell.
Well, because you gotta remember too, it's on the other side of the house, you know, so there's already a footing of the house blocking where the patio's going.
So, I mean,
Do you understand? Like,
well, where's the lake and the?
it's
The lake is down here.
it's below us. We're talking the other
It's along
side.
the other side of the house.
But it's still within the non-disturbance zone, and what would you typically do if
Just
you had a patio?
Part of what, you know, I guess this is an old plan of what was gonna be done but is not being done, or if we're just using this as a reference point, but this is not necessarily the plan, or is this the plan?
We want to make it the plan.
So if that's the case, then isn't this the plan that at the last meeting was also talking about vista pruning? Didn't we talk about that?
And you determined that that was something that was not permissible. This,
Yeah.
what you see here is the plan that was superimposed over a plan that expired years ago.
Right. So I'm just hesitant to say yes to this, because does that mean we're saying yes to everything, including the vista pruning?
That would be conditioned out.
It would be conditioned out.
There's a big tree behind the garage.
Yeah. Well, in addition to that, what we saw last meeting, there was some note for vista pruning that we talked about.
Yeah, you mentioned that last time. That's never been brought up to me, and to be honest, I don't know what vista pruning is.
But, so that's part of what I think John is also maybe talking about in terms of the kind of all over the place. We're not quite sure what parts of this you are doing, what parts you're not doing, because the one we saw at the last meeting said vista pruning. And
Yeah,
that's
I don't know
not-
where that, I don't know where that came from. Alls I know is anything on the other side of the house is where we're gonna do.
I mean, what does the application say exactly?
I'll bring it up.
Yeah.
One moment. So that was the original one, was superimposed on. Where did it go?
I mean, it almost feels like to see what was the exact application and how it was advertised, because
The
it's
application was for replanting.
It was,
right?
it was for
So-
planting, it didn't
It was
indicate
replanting.
anything
So
else. I can,
He has since asked to add this 10-by-10 slate patio. The patio is not, so the first thing that requires special permit is any activities which cause a change in topography or grade. This is gonna remain on grade, there's some construction work to remove some, to lay them down, but in my opinion, it's not gonna change topography or grade. It's pervious in that they're gonna be spaced, they're typically up to an inch apart. The soil's gonna remain, so it's somewhat pervious. It's on the other side of the house,
Right.
as you said, there's landscaping around it, so ideally we want that to run off towards that, and so you can grade a patio slightly so that it runs towards the landscaping that he's installing. I think if this was on its own and someone came to the counter and wanted to do a 10-by-10, we would certainly condition erosion control around it during the construction phase, but if this was an isolated, someone coming to the counter, the first question would be, are you gonna change topography or grade? And from what I can see here, that's not happening.
No.
As far as it noticing every single aspect, we notice he's applying for a special permit in the watershed according to section, whatever that may be, and we give a narrative, and I agree that this narrative most likely didn't talk about patios.
it did not.
Okay, no, that's fine, so if it's just the replanting and just the patio, then I think it's constrained. Is that it? Is that all there is?
And so there's some two brick areas that he wants to relay the brick. Take them up and put it back down. Again, it would be slight grading to make it level, but those two areas are shown around the corner of the house here. They're existing today.
Can we just document in writing what
Yes.
we're agreeing to?
I think that would be,
I mean,
if you want to,
I think that would do
No,
it.
hey, it would be a condition that.
That's what I mean, just,
Yeah.
as long as we document what's being done, I
Yeah.
think,
Yeah.
we have
Isn't
a
that
valid
what she
explanation
does?
that it's not gonna create a problem.
So it's good?
Yes.
Okay,
So the last
so,
meeting you talked
I mean,
about
I don't
council
know.
moving that, so if he points to remove an existing tree, we would condition that's not to be removed, it can be limbed.
And that was consistent with the site survey. Yeah, okay.
okay, so, wanna let, Gene, what was that? Wanna go over this again so we can get all, what was the last one you just said?
So that remove existing tree which is behind that garage, we would condition that's not to be removed. For safety reasons, there's a limb over the garage that can be
Okay, so the existing tree behind the garage is gonna be delimbed rather than removed.
Yep.
The trees that were taken down and the trees that are gonna be taken down are going to be replaced by like trees of like size. Trees in the non-disturb zone specifically are going to be of native species. The patio
And
is
I would
go-
say at a minimum of equal, but based on size requirements, that it could be more than 1 for 1.
Okay,
And leave the planning department to assess that.
and we'll, yes, I'll get to that, back to that at the end. He's gonna take up and put down bricks in the same location as they currently are around the house, and
With erosion control.
with erosion controls during construction, and an approximate, what's that?
The slope,
Same slope, same grading?
the slope.
Grading appropriate towards the pervious area.
Okay. And the slate patio as proposed, approximately 10 by 10, with no changes to grade or topography.
Again, erosion control during construction, and to slope that appropriately to the landscape bed behind it. Or to the left or right, I mean, you don't want to slope it towards your house either, so appropriately sloped to a pervious area.
Okay. And how should we condition planning's review and approval?
In most site plans, there's always a condition that says planning can do a site visit after, and if it deemed necessary to add more. but-
And we said a 1-year follow-up,
And a 1-year follow-up?
and we said conditioned out to Vista permit.
No,
Vista printing would not be permitted.
Yep.
So what
Don't
if a
do the
year
thing
from
you don't
now,
gotta do.
what if a year from now we have 2 feet of snow? You're not gonna come visit, are you?
we'll come visit before that. Snow doesn't stop us.
And so at the end of the planting, you should take pictures of everything, and then each month, try to take pictures of the area, so you
Okay.
can see the growth.
The more documentation they have, the less you hear from us.
Oh, I like
I
that.
do have one more question too.
Yes.
A question was brought up, I think actually by Peter, about the repaving of the existing driveway. So, that's something that, well, it's on this plan, so if you want to cover everything, I mean, there'd be, we want to say the applicant must file a planning prior to repaving of existing driveway, just so you
What were we
assess-
doing with the,
We haven't, we're not even there yet.
Okay.
So again,
That's
as
not-
a general
that's-
condition, anything else in this plan
Yeah.
is not authorized.
right, so nothing
Yeah,
else,
that has never,
you'll have to
that's
co-
the last thing we'll do, and I'll,
you'll come back. Anything
back,
else that's on here or that you
Once
guys think
I
you
get
might
it
be
all
doing,
cleaned
you've
up.
got to come back.
right.
Okay, so just the things that are on there are what's
that-
approved.
that's-
Okay, let's have a motion to close the public hearing.
Oh, we're not gonna vote it now, right?
Oh wait, was this a public hearing?
Yeah.
Yeah,
This was-
right, so do we need to close the public hearing?
Well, why don't we wait until
I have
the
drafts,
decision?
you have not reviewed the draft, and now we have new conditions, but this is a, draft that includes probably some other,
Can't we
So
so
just-
I don't know
would
if
say
you want to
based-
take a look
I
at
would
it
say
and then
based on
maybe.
tonight, probably continue it to one
Yeah.
more hearing,
Yeah.
which you can clean that up.
Okay,
That would be my
I
suggestion.
think we're good.
okay,
So what does that
Then
mean?
the next hearing, they should vote on it.
Okay.
so we're
I don't
gonna,
have to be here.
you can, I mean, I don't know that there'll be any questions. If you want
Okay.
to, you
All
can.
right.
Well, if you want, we'll take it first, on the next one, just
All
to
right.
finish it up.
I'm gonna hold you for that.
Okay, all
And
right.
you'll receive a copy of the draft decision to review.
All right, so we'll put that first on the next meeting, and we'll vote on it then.
Great, thank you
Great,
very much.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, 495 Main Street? Town of North Andover, is that, that and 1874 is all we have left, right?
1874 has arrived, if you want to take that one.
Oh,
But it's up to you.
let's see, they did request to go last, so we'll honor that request. 495 Main Street. Application for a special permit site plan review under section 195-8.10 through 8.17, 195-10.7, Town of North Andover zoning bylaw The applicant proposes to construct a recreational complex including athletic fields, tennis courts, picnic areas, and associated parking areas, walkways, and emergency maintenance access paths. Property is located in the R4 residential zoning district. Hi.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for having us.
Sure.
Where would you like us to start? A general overview, or
Tell us who you are first.
Oh, sure. Craig Miller. I'm president of Waterfield Design Group. We're civil engineers and landscape architects. We're the consultants working on behalf of the town of North Andover. And Jacob Murray here is our lead project engineer.
Okay. Monica, why don't you give us an introduction, and then we'll jump to you, gentlemen.
Excellent. An application was submitted on behalf of the town in December to allow for the redevelopment of an existing field location. This application was sent for department review as well as review by our peer consultants. So far, we've received feedback from the police. They actually met with the applicant today to discuss cameras, so they'll be submitting more information as to what their thoughts are on that. Conservation, they will be opening a hearing tomorrow to discuss this project. Building has submitted some comments, mostly related to details on footings for proposed restrooms and gazebos, electrical details, plumbing details, things of that nature. Fire has submitted comments. So far, they've stated that the apparatus can access the entire complex. The access is adequate. They are waiting for documentation related to confirming to the lack of flammability of the turf material proposed for the soccer field. They also stated that if the concession stand is to be used for cooking, it will need to comply with NFPA 1, section 10.14 and NFPA 96. Your health has not weighed in yet, and the peer review submitted comment actually this afternoon related to the overall stormwater review. They did state that this is a rather complex review, and further comment would be needed. But again, they just wanted to kind of give an overview of the stormwater review. They did make note that they were looking for some LID to be included in the plan. They also wanted the assessment of the stormwater system to be extended from the limit of work down to the wetlands. So that's some of the comments that they made so far. More expected.
And the land in this project was part of, what was it, town meeting last year and some of the funding, correct?
Exactly.
Okay. John, this is in line with what went before the CPA, correct?
Yeah.
We're just really coming to some...
It's the rollout, really, of the process. I mean, but you do the engineering, you figure out exactly how you're going to do it. And you build it.
All right. So then, gentlemen, with that lead in?
Sure.
Wayne?
So John's exactly right. This has been a long process for us. It's been a lot of meetings, a lot of back and forth. This is probably meeting well into our 20s with the community especially to try to get feedback on the conceptual layout and where things should go and why. And so the manifestation of the plans that you have in front of you are actually the engineering and the design of the process that we got consensus on from numerous different departments within the town and the abutters and other residents who came to the 20 or so public meetings that we had. So this is the rollout of the actual design of those elements that have already been thoroughly discussed and debated and adjusted along the way. In fact, every meeting we had with the community, we were making adjustments to the plan to accommodate concerns that have been raised. So the plan that is in front of you now is the result of that extensive back and forth process. The plan that's on the screen right now is the existing conditions plan. You're probably very, very familiar with that. You see the middle school and the existing fields. There's a wetland area to the upper right of the page. And then, of course, there's the kindergarten and elementary school on the left side with Route 125 at the bottom of the page.
Now, the parking lot there and the playground are already constructed.
That's correct. So this is existing conditions as of where we stand today,
Okay.
with some improvements that have been done by others to the areas you just noted.
That playground looks really great.
Yep.
I'm not sure.
Is the playground part of this plan? Because it is already done.
There is a playground that's done, and we're building another one. So on the next page,
So who built that playground?
wasn't us.
Oh, so it's
I think
separate,
it's-
but part of your plan, but separate?
Not part of our plan per se. We're showing it on this plan just for orientation purposes. It's not anything that we designed, and it's not something that obviously we did not have any hand in the construction of.
I think it's for Atkinson, yeah.
The Atkinson.
Right. Came before us, and we obviously coordinated with them as they were doing their design and their construction, and even some of the traffic improvements that are going on with the access to the kindergarten and the new academic center there has all been coordinated with us. We've coordinated with them. So there's no stone left unturned in terms of what's been done and what will be done. So this plan is our proposed site plan. You can see it's a large area. I mean, it was an existing multi-purpose recreation complex to begin with, just old and tired. And so now we're going to get as much possible use out of this as we can. This shows a 16-acre site, more or less. In total, roughly 6.5 acres of it is the turf athletic fields. There's another 6 acres that is open landscape area surrounding it. So you see the two different green colors. The darker green is open space landscape. The light green are the athletic surfaces. Within that open 6 acres of open space, we'll be planting 57 new trees. So we're trying to really green up the area and create some variety within the landscape so that it's not just an open, wide expanse of athletic performance and recreation space. We want to create some interesting ways that people can use and interact with each other as they are also using the athletic portion. You'll see parking spaces where there's right now we're going to be adding, this plan calls to be adding 160 new spaces, and most of those are occurring to the middle right of that plan. But then there's a small parking lot down near the bottom of the page that is also new parking spaces. So we feel that those new parking spaces will do a lot to take some of the pressure off of the use of this area. Of course, when it's used, when everything is firing at once, that can be a challenge, but that's the scheduling aspect of how the property gets used. So that's less of a design issue, more of a scheduling and management of how the resource and the assets get used and overlap with one another. So there'll be a total of 465 spaces here when it's all said and done, and we think that will service this quite nicely. In terms of the athletic fields, the main plate, if you will, is in the middle of the drawing. That's a full-size baseball to the top where that arrow is moving, and then just below that, adjacent to it, is a full-size soccer, lacrosse, multi-sport field, and also sized for football. So that football field plate is actually larger than the soccer plate, and there'll be goal posts here so that football can use it. These are all artificial turf fields. The lower plate, which is above this, is also artificial turf. It's 11v11 soccer on the bottom part of that upper field, and then softball and Little League in the upper corner, also artificial turf. Both fields will be lit. I have another plan that I'll show you in a few minutes that shows the lighting and how that will work, and I'll go through that in detail. Before I finish and leave this plan, though, we've also got on the bottom of the page is where the two playgrounds are going to be. We've split those playgrounds up as you normally would between ages 2 to 5 and then ages 5 to 12. They're directly adjacent to one another. And there's not a lot of detail there because we're still working through the specifics on the actual play equipment. But for all intents and purposes, this is where that area will be located. In the middle, you'll see tennis courts. Those are also multi-sport court areas. So it's tennis, it's pickleball, 6 pickleball courts, 2 tennis courts, and then I'm losing my notes here on the street hockey. So 2 street hockey courts. So that's multi-purpose, multi-function court areas. To the left of the tennis and pickleball is a common area that will have a concession and bathroom building in it, a small little shed building, very similar to what we designed and built at McAvoy. And there's also a what do they call it, a canopy-type structure, a gazebo shade structure adjacent to the concession building. There's a half-court basketball court. That's the small little blue square at the peninsula point, if you will, and that kind of rounds out that activity zone. One really important detail that I don't want to make sure we don't miss in this area is to the right of the tennis courts, and that is looks like a half moon. Oh, thank you for blowing that up. If you could do it one more time. There's a half moon shape. That's an amphitheater. So the topography of this site is fairly unique. Right now, this existing plate is, I don't know, 8 or so feet above the parking area for the middle school. And so we're digging into that area to create that graduated step-down structure, landform structure of an amphitheater. So that circle in the middle is the stage, and then ringing the stage are graduated seats that step up the hill. And the main purpose of this is educational, so it'll be used primarily by the middle school, but this is also, you know, Friday night movies in the summer and any other performing arts type programming space that could be beneficial. So this has a lot of different uses. We will wire this for sound, but not sound that will broadcast to the neighborhood because it's dug into a bowl. The sound will actually be directed towards the middle school walls. And what we're trying to do is also have, much like they do at Fenway Park, have small speakers, not big speakers to project noise, but small speakers spread out so that you hear it at a very low level. So that's a tool that we're using to reduce the overall noise that could be created there. It's a really effective way to make it so that it's a pleasant environment for the performance, but also not unpleasant for the neighbors and abutters. If you go to the top of the page, then there's just scroll down just a little. To the left is another half-court basketball, and then we've got bocce and shuffleboard to the left. And you can see the dark green areas. Now that we're at this scale, you can see the dark green areas. We've got walking paths within there and other areas that we can help people have a more active use. We do have an exercise area that is also near the playground, and I think that pretty much rounds out the program of the space.
Is there a walking path? I thought I remember.
Yes, I said that there is a walking path. If you look to the right, between the main athletic field and the parking lot, you see that long walkway. That continues left across the entire length. So you see we've got almost a full perimeter walkway, and then we're also circling the other field with walkways. So there's a lot of different places for people to walk and get around. So if you go to the next page, you might need to zoom down on this, right? So this is a drainage plan. So those blue squares are underground drainage chambers. And earlier had been mentioned that there's a peer review happening on this. We've been interacting with Horsley Witten and the Conservation Commission. We had our first meeting with CONCOM a week or two ago, and we're focused intently on the drainage and reviewing the peer review's comments. But in general, these are underground storage chambers. So we're increasing the runoff from the project, but putting it right back in the ground where it was going originally. So these chambers, there'll be a series of under drains under the turf field that will collect the water that goes through the turf field. The nice thing about the performance of these fields is that they will no longer puddle and prevent play from occurring. These are high performance artificial turf surfaces, so they've got kind of a sand base, and the water goes right through them. We catch the water underneath the field in a series of pipes, and then we carry that water to these underground chambers. It's also for water quality. We'll be scrubbing the water before it gets into the ground and into the ground water table. And so we're doing that also for the parking lot. So you see parking lot on the right, there's a chamber there, and then all those other chambers are to capture the runoff that goes through the fields. And the key thing to know about the drainage on this project is that there is no net increase in runoff created by the project. So whatever runoff left the site before we got here, it's the same amount that leaves the site when we're done. And the reason we're able to do that is because we're putting it back in the ground as the DEP requires. And the engineering behind that is all going to be proven out with the peer reviewer through the conservation process, and we've done this a million times, so we're very confident that this will work well. If you go to the next page, yep, this is our lighting plan. And so we've got 4 different levels of lighting here. So the dark black circles in the middle are what I call the tall boys. So these are 80 and 90 foot light towers that are meant to light the main athletic field. And all the lights from the athletic field lighting fixtures are all pushing the light towards the field and down. I'm going to show you a few pictures after this that will explain how that actually works, but for right now, those black circles are the tall boys, 80 and 90 feet. The blue circles at the top of the page are 60 and 70 feet, and you notice that we've put those strategically in that location to push light away from the neighborhood. So it's going to light the field, but light it down and away. So no one's going to get, that lighthouse kind of beacon going into their shaded window from these lights, because they're all directing the light straight down. The green are pedestrian lights. Those are much shorter. And the orange are parking lot lights. So those are about 20 feet tall. And the pedestrian level lights are 10 or 12 feet tall. And so the idea here, we're big advocates of kind of a minimalist approach to lighting. We have to provide a certain level of lighting for safety, and our engineers have made sure that we do that. But our goal as designers is really to provide less light. So we're constantly going back and forth between those two objectives to make sure that we don't create this, airport-like buzz of the light. Let's go to the next page, and I'll show you how these lights work. So these are photographs. If you can zoom up a little bit. These are photographs of the same type of lights that we plan to use here. So this is Merrimack College, not too far away. Nice looking lights, and you see on the other side of those tall towers, it's black. So they're not lighting up structures that exist on the other side of those towers. They're lighting up the field. And that's because of the lens, the refractive lenses that are in the fixture itself pushes that light, and because they're LEDs, also pushes the light down like a laser right on the surface it's supposed to be lighting. Go to the next one.
Driven by Merrimack College at night?
Hold on. If people are going to have a chance to say things and ask questions, but that
So
time
this
is
is another example. This is Weston High School, same type of thing. And it's really the next image is the one that will help explain the point more directly. So this is what we're talking about. So you see to the right of that line of towers, it's dark. To the left, it's lighting the field. So this is the impact that we're talking about proposing with the towers. So that's what we're proposing here, this type of fixture. And then the last image, it's just more lighting pictures. But the last, if you keep going, and you have to come down a bit too. It's a big one. It's a big one. So this is a cross-section that's going through the project in two directions. And so what we're trying to do here is show that we've got a couple of different tiers of elevation happening with the project, separated by about 6 or 8 feet. Yeah, that's good. Maybe a little too far. Go up a little bit, right. So that main plate is the upper field. That's the larger field where the football and full-size baseball is going to be. And then the way we cut these sections, adjacent to that is a parking lot. And the education center's on the left, wetlands, and of course houses after the wetlands. And then the lower one, if you go up just a little bit, so that still shows the upper field. You see how it drops just a little bit, about 6 or 8 feet down to the lower field. So we're creating some variety again, so it's not this big, wide open, expansive space, but it's actually cut in half visually because of that separation vertically between the two fields. And so then there's another drop before you get down to Hemlock Street. And you'll see the scale of all the other elements. And that's the end of our explanation of the project. We're happy to entertain questions or comments and see where we want to go from there.
Okay, so let's see, if there are any questions or comments from the board, we'll do that, and then we'll take public comments and questions.
Can you talk a little bit about the sequencing of the work, when it starts, how it starts, what impact it's going to have on the schools, all that sort of stuff?
Certainly. If you could go back to the top image, the second image that actually had the proposed project, the color project plan, way at the top. Yep, there you go, that one. So our intention, this will take 2 construction seasons. Our focus is to get started this coming year, this coming summer construction season. And we want to work our way from the back of the site out. So ideally, we would do the smaller field at the top of the page first and work our way out towards Route 125. Ideally, we would set in place the 2 athletic field plates. I call them plates because they're big square areas. We want to get those established, get the grade set, get the drainage installed, and let that material settle over the winter, and then skin the fields the following year. Now, of course, there's some programming that needs to come into play too, and we need to discuss this with the town because there's a desire to have these fields online as soon as possible. So in a perfect world, we would do it the way I said, but it's also possible for us to get one field online before the end of this year.
Mentioned too that we're going to maintain the fireworks.
Yeah, so Rick Green's been our point of contact on the project, and the site has been used for fireworks for many years and will continue to be used as well. And that's one of the questions that we'll be resolving with the fire department, how the fireworks work and the flammability of the turf.
That would be a firework.
Less flammable than grass, though, so it's...
What about grading? What's the grading plan? Is it a net? Are you going to be hauling soils off, or are you going to be bringing soils on? Can you speak to that?
We're pretty proud to say that we're almost close to net zero. When we our first cut at this, no pun intended, our first cut at the grading design had a lot of fill coming off site. And then we decided to start playing with the fill and raise some of the plates, primarily the main plate. And so we're raising the lower plate, I think, by 1 foot from what it is now. And then the main plate is being raised, how much is 2 feet? And so we're losing a lot of material by raising the plate. We're also experimenting with some creative landforms on how we can create some interesting forms that could be part of the landscape, part of the recreation, part of the play, in fact, and also create some variety in the terrain. One interesting idea that one of our designers came up with is this kind of, what was it called, Duffy's Corner. Back, was it Fenway?
Yeah, in front of Fenway was Duffy's Cliff, but that's...
So Fenway used to have this little sloped area that went up in the outfield, back when that sort of thing was still allowed. We're not putting that in the field of play, but we are creating a viewing area where the scoreboard would be that is an incline that's a replica of Duffy's Cliff. They called it a cliff, it was really just an incline. So we're trying to have some fun with the fill so that we can save money.
Is it a net? Are you going to be taking off or adding?
Our goal is
is it a net zero?
our goal is to be zero, and we're pretty close to it.
What's the lifespan of the artificial turf?
So the lifespan on the turf depends on a lot of different things. We haven't chosen the product yet. We're in the process now of going through that with the town. We're looking at potentially using the same product that's already been installed here. So it's a function of product and how much you pay up front. It's also a function of wear and use and the intensity of the use, right, and how you maintain it in the wintertime, and whether you use it in the wintertime. But on average, all things considered, it's 10 years or so.
There's been some controversy on artificial turf in recent years, hasn't there?
In what regard?
Impact on, kids using it and what comes off the artificial turf in a number of areas.
Yes, so there's two schools of thought. There's a camp that says it doesn't have an impact, and there's a camp that says it does. And so it really depends on which side of that issue you're on.
What process do you use to select which product to use?
Well, it's a number of different variables. Its cost is a big deciding factor, and that's not our decision. That's a decision that we put in front of the town and say, how much do you want to pay? But cost, the long-term lifespan of the turf, that plays a role in it too, and then it's how it plays and what you're trying to achieve with the turf itself. Because these are multi-sport and intended to serve a lot of different masters, it limits our choices to some degree,
Yeah.
but not extensively.
And is your decision-making process for the product, does it provide to the town any actual use feedback from other towns that have installed different products?
Sure.
Is that part of what you will provide to the town?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all part of the process.
Thanks.
Yep.
Question, so first of all, nice design, it's real impressive to see, what can be done. It's actually hard to imagine that all that can fit in that space. In regards to the parking, like you mentioned 465, is that new or is that added to what's
No,
there?
so 465 is the total number of spaces. We're adding 160 new spaces. So there's 305 there today. We're adding 160 new for a total of 465.
So, and this might be getting ahead, but can you explain how, you enter and exit and, the egress, and then, I know, I'm familiar, I'm here every afternoon to pick somebody up that works there, and there's already trouble in this, parking kind of right here by the new kindergarten. I picked
Yes.
somebody up. So, it's already pretty congested,
Right.
and it's not lit very well either, so there's been kids running around, and I'm just concerned about, and I've heard they have to hopscotch in the afternoon with that parking on the side.
Right.
Because there's not enough, so I'm just trying to envision how.
We've talked to the kindergarten about the issues with
Mhm.
drop-off and pickup. It's a real crunch.
Yeah.
And so my understanding is that there's a system, an electronic system that will be put into use soon that will notify the teachers when their parents are actually there. And so they get an advance notice that their parents are here, and it helps the queue. It helps move the queue,
I think
helps
it's the way
move the flow.
it's more the way the queue's set up, though.
Right.
Electronic system might alert you have a ride, but I can't imagine the volume of traffic with just the amount of activity there, how it's going to work. I've only been there since it opened, having to pick somebody up, but in 5 o'clock in the evening, it's extremely difficult because you only can get out that one area onto 125, and you can't go in that way, and then I guess you enter over by the middle school.
Well, keep in mind too that the most important part in the discussion of how that works is that we're not going to have athletic events when parents are coming to pick up and drop off at 3 o'clock.
You want soccer practices or nothing? 'Cause
Right,
they're all in the
that's-
evenings there.
Yeah.
Soccer practice is 6
So in the
o'clock at
afternoon,
night.
right, in the afternoon, correct, right, there will be.
No after-school
right.
sports?
No, I'm sorry, there will be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
But to piggyback on Lori's question, how do you envision cars entering and
Yeah.
exiting the site, just in general?
Yep, so from 125, and then you want to
the exit.
exit, right?
I mean, the predominant parking is going to be obviously be
So
the
you have
large
this
field.
two ways, right? So right now that's only.
Right now it's one way.
Right now that's just an exit.
Yeah, so they can be coming in both that way and then also off of Main Street to be able to go around the building to the main parking area for the fields, which is the larger parking area.
And what about it?
So on the Main Street side, cars would come in and bear right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You have to go all the way around.
You have to go,
Yeah.
like that.
That's the only way you can get in right now is over off of Main, the back of the
What
middle.
about off of-
Yeah, it's,
So one thing that hasn't happened yet is there's going to be a traffic light at 125, and there is going to be access in from 125.
There's going to be.
going to be.
There's going to be.
What about Mass Ave?
No.
Plus the distance from that traffic light to a new traffic light there, I think that's, engineering-wise, it's gonna bottleneck a lot of traffic. Yeah.
What about exiting? We have this exit. I thought I saw some arrows up above on this.
Go to, if you move the,
One exit?
move the slide down. So that's exit only during school hours.
It's the same one as there now.
Same as it is today, correct?
Parker Street's,
Right.
So
the
the-
gate at Parker Street won't change.
So your vision is that those remain just
Just
at
as they are.
school hours,
That's right.
exits, not
That's right.
other use?
Well, with the exit now at 5:30 to get out from the kindergarten, that's already backing up to the kindergarten. Because you can't exit quickly, even if there's a light put there, it's gonna help it, but already the traffic is back in the parking lot of the kindergarten to try to exit, and I'm there at 5:30. So I'm worried about egress for that size of a facility and that many cars and that much activity, not to mention if others, I mean, a bus is gonna be coming in and out of there with, like, bringing athletes back
Well,
and forth.
so what we can do is we could come back with some numbers that will specifically address how that's gonna work in the afternoon, because that's when everything will kind of line up. So we'll come back with numbers that will show.
That'd be great. Yeah.
It's actually unfortunate, if we had done site plan review in the kindergarten, we might have avoided some of this, but
Yeah.
we're gonna have to do something remedial, I think, as part of this
Some of it,
project.
you're absolutely right. So some of it's been the die that was cast that we were handled with, right from that project. So we're dealing with some of the things that they left, and now we're trying to make everything better.
Unless it was scaled a little differently, just because the amount, which everything is great, I love it, I'm just very concerned about the scale of the project now with the kindergarten,
Right.
that's all.
So we can come back with traffic data that will help explain how the numbers will work. You know, number of users in the afternoon versus number of students being picked up, dropped off, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Any thoughts of another potential egress would be interesting, because just having one exit is somewhat troubling.
Is that now
So-
just a one-way in off of Mass Ave along the front of Atkinson?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a one-way in.
Right.
Well, it's one way in, and you can't get through.
You can't cut through, you could cut through.
You can
and
park
walk
where
in.
number 30 is, but it's a small area.
So, yeah, because it used to be you could traverse all the way through.
You-
You say you
Yeah.
can't do that
Not
anymore?
anymore.
No, there are big
No.
gates there.
Yeah.
Oh. So
Which
you-
is good for the playground and for the kids
great
going
for
from
the
Atkins to
playground,
go to the
yeah.
playground, but it makes this parking lot, I mean, that's almost always full. and
I mean,
that-
because it's interesting, in the old days, that was the primary
Right.
way everybody came in to walk around the track.
Right,
you know?
Right.
yeah.
So, right, you can go in there and then you can go out that way only during school.
Yeah.
So. Okay. That's a really good start. Thank you. So why don't we take public comment and questions? Well, you
Should
gentlemen.
we stay here or to
Nope,
move?
you guys take a seat.
Okay.
If we have, so the way this will work, is if you have comments, you can make any comments you want. If you have questions, ask all your questions to us, and then we'll have those gentlemen back up. Just want to have one person talking at a time. Come on up.
So am I all set here?
You come on up.
Hi, I'm Margaret Legal, and I'm an immediate abutter to the new fields.
Which property? What's your address?
Hemlock Street,
What's your address?
26 Hemlock, and we've been there for over 30 years. I agree that this needs an uplift, facelift, whatever. I'm just concerned about a couple things. I realize you haven't picked this turf yet, but you brought it up that there was a lot of controversy about the material being used being carcinogenic, especially the black tire fill that they use. And there's been studies or tracking of people that played on those courts or those the turf getting cancer, the kids. From repeatedly being on that, it pushes up the black, what do you call it?
Yeah, I know exactly. Pellets.
Yeah, the little pellets. In fact, I know parents of students that the kids are playing soccer at the high school that they can't bring their shoes in because they're all black. Now, the situation is that you can inhale it. If you're on it and you've got cuts, it can enter the body that way. And the off gases are constantly coming from that. And as an immediate abutter, I'm not sure I want to breathe that. And with 3 schools in the immediate area using the playgrounds, using that, I just think it's very risky for the kids. And I think, well, everyone would agree that that'd be first priority, is the kids playing on a field that has the potential to be to cause them to be sick. And that's my biggest, I wrote this big thing of notes. I just have to make sure I said everything. Yeah, and it's 6 acres, I think you said. So that's 6 acres of that stuff giving off gas, or kids playing on it. And every time they play on it, stuff comes up. So I think that really, really has to be considered, what surface is chosen.
So can I jump in here?
Yeah, I just want to say,
I just want to make a
yeah,
comment.
go ahead.
So, we use, I guess I can call it third-party advice for things like stormwater. And I am not an expert on this, but I have done some minimal reading that there have been some concerns about different types of products. And I'm not saying artificial turf is a bad thing. I am saying that if there has been work into this, we should get good advice before we commit. And I appreciate the designers responding to my question about what the process is, but I didn't get the same level of thoroughness if I had asked the question of, well, in fact, the designers said they're going to prove that their stormwater won't change with our stormwater engineer. I would have liked to have heard this similar thing for the artificial turf, that there's going to be a third party, or if not a third party, some assessment of, here's the state of the art, here's what we know, and here's why we recommend this and not that. And it may turn out that maybe I'm making too much of this, because I'm certainly not an expert, but we make use of outside experts. I'm asking if this is a situation that we ought to, because whatever we put down, there's a lot of it.
Well, I guess the question is, who's the we?
Yeah, good question.
Because I'm not sure it's necessarily a planning board decision. Well, so the way, at least,
when we read our decisions, there's standard language that says this is not going to adversely impact.
so the way, when I've been involved in the past in purchasing and things like that for fields,
Okay.
usually what you do is you solicit bids.
Yep.
And as part of that, usually there are, I'd say maybe 4 or 5 people or groups that do turf fields, and they do them across the state and across the country, and they come to you with, one of the ones that I was at with, here are 3 or 4 different products, here's the science that has been done on those products.
But that's by the vendors.
Correct. Correct.
So we don't do that with stormwater.
No, but but that's where we don't even have a product in front of us yet.
I know.
So I mean, to me, that's more of the town making a decision what kind of product, and then coming at least here
Okay,
first.
so-
I think we're just not there yet.
Who's the town?
But maybe, Peter,
It's
I
gotta
think
go to
there's
bid.
a couple of considerations here is that we do have a Board of Health. I mean, I don't know
Yeah.
if you were sort of moving in that direction, but it would seem to me that would be I don't want to get into the same thing like we get into with cell towers, because, there's an element of it that's way past our pay grades and, not subject, but, so we don't want them to look at it maybe too deeply, but I'm sure maybe we could ask them to take a look at it.
I
and
love that
say,
idea, and
Yeah.
we've talked before about,
Yeah.
exercising the muscle mass between boards and committees, and this might be an ideal example.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
I just don't think we're there yet. I think we need more specifics.
We're not,
first.
but what I don't want to have happen is
Have a decision made. before.
it comes right by us, and well, if you'd asked us before, but we're too far down the road now. So we're raising it early to say, hey, these are some questions, what's the best way to address them? I happen to like the Board of Health idea. but I would like to see some type of referral from this board to them asking, can you help with this?
To the Board of Health.
I would think so.
Yeah, sure.
Why not?
Yeah.
I mean, we can't tell them, we can ask them.
Okay. So why don't we do this? Gentlemen, are you, anything else from you, ma'am?
The only other thing is the water, the runoff coming from the turf. That's going to be filtered by the turf. So if that's carcinogenic, it's going to go right in the water, and then the water goes right into the water table. And then here we are with, we don't, these are all, ifs, and we don't know. But I don't want to be the one that's,
No, they're good questions. They're
yeah.
good questions.
I mean, we really need to be the caretakers of the future, and we don't want to put something in there that is making people sick or that we have to tear out in 10 years. That's just not wise. So
I'm wondering for the, maybe the applicants is, obviously you choose turf fields because of the maintenance cost and ability to play year-round. But what is the difference, the relative delta in the cost of constructing a turf field versus a regular field? And, I mean, just kind of from a cost of ownership point of view.
yeah, because we don't use them year-round.
Yeah.
So
I'm just curious, what is the trade-off?
Almost twice.
It's almost twice as expensive to have grass.
No, to do turf?
To put it in,
Yeah, to build it, yes,
but it's cheaper over time.
much cheaper.
The problem you're gonna have, John, if you put natural grass, those playing surfaces will look like the middle school does now in a couple of years.
Okay.
It will not hold up on the amount of use they're gonna get.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if I could, just to weigh in on this, so
Why don't you come up? Why don't you come up?
I don't want to,
My seat?
don't want to go against your process, but I also want to help advance the
Yeah.
discussion.
I think I'm finished.
These are great questions, and the product, so these products have been out there for a long time. This is not the first time that a community like North Andover has wrestled with the very same questions. In fact, town of North Andover bought this product recently for the high school field. So this has already been vetted. It's not to say that it shouldn't be vetted again, it should be. But the other main point is that we're working for you. We're not, this is not some developer coming in trying to get these athletic fields in at any cost. We're here to make you happy. We're the town's consultants. So if your charge is a cancer-free field, which should be a goes without saying type moment, right? Then of course we'll provide a product that does that. I'm not aware of a product that provides cancer as part of their material benefits. So I don't, I understand that there is an element of science out there that might be evolving on this, but still, this has been around for a very long time, and we will bring to you the data that you can then digest, and it's not our decision. I'm not advocating it for my own benefit. The town has said we would like fields that are artificial because of the programming use, because of the intensity of use that you will get from them, and the economic benefit that comes with that. And so if that's one of the criteria for the project, then our job is to meet that criteria and also meet the other criteria. So our job is to give you a product that's safe.
So any data you can provide to us on that, so the data I've seen really does not support any carcinogenic issues.
Right.
But I actually have bigger concerns about concussions with turf fields. So any data on those kind of issues, if you could bring to us, we could look at, talk about, and then maybe we can have the Board of Health in, or anyone even from the administration who's kind of looked at this, just to kind of talk about it and
Absolutely.
get the public more information too.
And just so you know where we're at and why we're approaching it in the way we are, we have to start someplace. And we don't know what your concerns are going to be in advance. So we come with a pretty basic approach. Here's the project. And then we react and come back with additional information to satisfy the different queries that we get along the way. So injuries and concussions and use and intensity of use, we'll come back with the data. Same thing on the health issues, to the point where if you and your Board of Health and others, abutters, are not satisfied, then we need to get to a place where we are satisfied.
Great.
So we're on the same team.
Fantastic.
Well, I guess the thing that you had said previously that gave me some pause was when you spoke previously, you said there's a number of factors and one of them was cost.
Correct.
It just seemed like in the context of those earlier comments that, not surprisingly, cost is certainly a significant issue, right? It
Yes,
is
it
to all of us.
It is, right.
So what I've heard now, I think is very encouraging that yes, cost is a big deal and it's part of it. And next to that, all the information that the town needs, whether it's this board, Board of Health,
Right.
abutters,
Right.
to make a decision that there may be differences in cost, but here's the trade-offs.
Right.
Whether it's with respect to injuries, with respect to suspected health issues, whatever it is. So cost is one of the criteria,
Right.
but at the end of the day, it may not be the driver.
That's right. And again, as I said, when we come to this process, we don't know in advance what the questions are going to be from you or from the abutters. And so our job is to come here and present the project
Right.
and then react and give you the data, because for us, we know safety will work
Right.
and we know that health will work.
And
We just need to
I guess
illustrate that.
the other piece I was processing is you've laid out so many elements of this plan and done a great job of the plan and laying it out. It's been a wonderful presentation. So the way I've seen these projects work is, the spreadsheet has line items for the budget, right?
Right.
And what's the last thing that's gonna come? It's probably gonna be the turf, right? I mean, maybe not literally, but close to literally. And at that point, all those other budget line items will be filled in. And to what extent does it box us in at the end for, maybe this isn't our first choice, but we had to go a little higher than we thought in these line items. And so I have some concern about just sort of the dynamic of a budget during a project, boxing us in for an issue that, we just want to make sure we're making the decisions on the right criteria.
So
Does
part
that
of
make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So part of the entire process that we are providing to the town is that cost analysis as part of our design.
Yeah.
So that when we're finished with the design process, we will have done all of that horse trading with you. to
Before it
say-
starts.
Before it's done,
Great.
before any ground is turned over.
Yeah.
We will have illustrated all the different project elements and their costs, and the horse trading that might be needed to get us to that final budget number.
Yeah.
And it's only when we've satisfied that process thoroughly on all the items and total cost that we finally say, okay, let's build.
So we're reserving budget to make really good choices with the turf.
We're making quality, value judgments on every product and every element of the project.
Great.
As we go.
Thanks.
So when we finish the process, we will have those different matrices that will show the trade-offs and why we had a decision to
Right.
go in a certain direction. With turf, playground equipment,
Great.
benches, lighting, everything has a value element to it that we are evaluating.
Fantastic. All right. Anyone else? One at a time? Two at a time?
Well, we live right next to each other.
Sure.
We have the same concerns. My name is Susan Fosher, and I live at 50 Parker Street.
I'm Kim Reardon, and I live at 62 Parker Street.
Okay.
So I have some concerns. Some are long-term and some are short-term. I'll start with the long-term ones. And actually, Laura, you said what I wanted to say. I think we really need to look at the parking, the egress, and all this. So I live on Parker Street. That's that egress only towards the top of the parking lot on the right. It historically has been egress only. We've been assured several times along this process that it will remain egress only, that the gate is to be open only during school hours. We've been assured of that as well. I will tell you that the reality is that people enter there all the time, and the reality is you can put all the parking spots you want there. People are still parking all the way up and down Parker Street. And since they did the sidewalk construction project 2 years ago, our street is even narrower than it was before. So now people can't even, it's not like they can put two wheels of their car up on the grass. There is a hard cut curb. And so they are parked in the street, and there are days that I can't easily back out of my driveway at drop off and pick up, because parents of the elementary school students park there on Parker Street all up and down and then they walk their kids across the field to the Atkinson school. So this is before we put in this recreation complex. And I totally get the idea of the recreation complex, and I'm going to go out on a limb here and say we hope that a lot of people avail themselves of it. The concern of ours as abutters is this is just going to increase the situation that we're already experiencing, but it's not going to just be drop off and pick up for school. It's going to be all day long. We're going to have these sporting events. And I guess, so I just want to reiterate my concerns on that. I don't know what we can do in terms of our street, if there's a way to make it residential parking only. I don't know what our...
Parking on one side, because there's going to be a safety issue. If there's parking on both sides, there's going to be no way that emergency vehicles can go up or get through into that to access that. It's a mess.
Do all the houses have driveways?
Yes.
Okay.
And to be honest with you, I backed out into $3,000 boo-boo because somebody was parked on the other side of the street, and I backed out of my driveway and went right into the car.
Right. No, the question is asked because I didn't want you wouldn't want to say no parking on the street if people living there are parking.
we
there.
all have driveways.
We all have driveways.
Yeah, yeah. And a lot of people don't understand that they shouldn't park across
Yeah.
from a driveway.
School situations,
Mhm.
rapid access to respond to an incident.
So, and what's the difference between the mornings and the afternoons? Is there a difference, or is it the same?
It's the same.
Same people come and park in the morning when they're dropping their kids off, and then they're back in the afternoon. They park in the same exact spots every day.
And the kids walk over there, or they walk
The
over?
parents escort them, so they park on our street.
Yeah.
It's mostly the little ones.
Yeah.
Because the middle school kids walk, but the elementary school parents park all up and down Parker Street, and then they walk their child across the fields to the Atkinson, or the preschool.
The earlier childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And when they have activities up there, it's only going to get worse.
Well, it seems like after school would certainly be worse than,
That's
you're
right.
probably not going to have too many sporting events on a Tuesday at 9 o'clock, but 3 o'clock on, and then weekends.
Well, weekends
You're gonna
and afternoons afternoons and evenings in the spring and fall. Summer quiets down around July and August, but it's pretty. And yes, when there's like flag football on Sunday mornings, we've got cars parked all up and down. They just don't want to bother driving around to Main Street. So if they live on that side of
They use
the
Parker
town.
Street as a parking.
So we're not going to have any answers today, but
No,
these are
expressing concerns.
Yep, those are good.
And for you to take into consideration.
Yeah, and some of it may be, there may be some things that we can suggest here as part of this. It may be things that are also outside of our jurisdiction in terms of no parkings on things like that. Things we can suggest, but not necessarily enforce from this board.
Yeah,
But
and you just hit the
could
nail
help.
on the head.
Yeah.
This is the type of project where the jurisdiction changes, and so like I understand that the design engineers, this parking situation on Parker Street is out of their hands, but this project does impact us.
Yeah, and you should raise it here so we can raise it elsewhere as well.
Yep.
So, okay.
And then my other thing, and they did talk about the lighting. I got to say, I'm not really liking the sound of big boys. 90-foot tall. Okay.
Since they put
So we kind of had this situation when the middle school expanded about 22 years ago. There were a lot of assurances about the lighting and stuff, and I got to say, the lights currently around the football field, they're pretty darn bright. Now, I understand what the engineers are saying is that there's new technology and, the refraction, and they can try to reduce it. The long and the short of it is you still are going to have all these lights, and if you got a 90-foot tall light, I don't care if you're beaming it down. My house is not 90 feet tall. So it's, the refraction and all that. There are actually 2 lights hanging off the side of Atkinson School right now. It looks like Close Encounters of the Third Kind, for those of you that are old enough to remember that.
Right across the field, right into your front.
In the living room.
Right into the living room.
It's crazy.
There you go, it's crazy.
Yeah, and we don't live that close to the Atkinson School, and it's that bright. So I guess the lighting is a concern, and so there's the, 9 to 10 big boys around the upper field, and then there's these smaller ones. It just sounds like a lot of lights, and I'm just saying, and as in a butter, we live there 24/7. I'd really like that to be taken into consideration. And the hours of the sporting events. Like, I think one of the assurances when they put in when they did the lighting around the football field was that lights would be off by like 9 p.m. It's not always, it's pretty close. But they also said there would only be about 6 games per season. And that's been true. Like, the middle school football games have been very few. I guess my concern is if we are expanding the uses of this recreation complex and we're going to be, inviting more and more teams to be utilizing these fields, do we have an end time? Do we have, does this mean that this is going to be a hub of activity come, first sign of spring until first snowfall? What are we dealing with here in terms of the number of teams that are going to be coming in to play, and how late are they going to be allowed to utilize the fields?
Another concern was during the initial town meeting, I asked the question about renting out these fields to outside agency to bring revenue into the town. We were told that was not going to be and they weren't going to do it. We just want to make sure that we're not, it's one thing to service your children in other towns playing your children's sports, but it's another entity if you're going to be bringing adult soccer ball activities or softball activities or baseball activities to an outside entity to bring in revenue for the town. That's going to increase more congestion. We were told that wasn't going to be an issue, but I just want to make sure that we get it on record that it's still not going to be a common practice.
Thank you.
And then just my last thing, the construction itself.
Yeah.
I know the engineers mentioned that it would be 2 construction seasons, the first being this summer. As I alluded to before, we've already endured this sidewalk project. And when I tell you, it was from May to November, and it was trucks coming up and down our street, starting at 6 in the morning, and they're not supposed to start till 7, but they're beeping, they're getting set up. And so we already endured that. I guess my question is, during the 2 construction seasons, where is this going to be staged, and what roads are they going to be using to actually truck all the equipment and supplies?
So we'll come to that. That's part of the site plan, I think, but that we haven't gotten that yet.
Okay.
So we'll get to that.
Yeah.
We'll have it'll be part of the discussion, and part of the permit is where all that's going to happen. We're just not there yet, but that will be discussed and determined of where things will be parked and staged.
Okay. Because it was very disruptive, and summertime, and you have your windows open, and it's the noise and the dust and all that. And I'm really trying not to be a drama llama, but it was bad. So to hear that there's 2 more summers of that coming, it's just, yeah.
Generally, all our permits have rules about staging and putting, protective items down and things like that. I mean, we have language that we'll use. We'll get to that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You want me to stay? You want me to move?
You can sit right there if you like. I'm going to answer some of those questions that you brought up. In terms of Parker Street.
Can you introduce yourself?
Yes, Rick Green.
Yeah.
I was chairman for the subcommittee for the middle school fields improvement. I'm the one who actually chaired the 21 meetings we had. I've been involved with this project since its inception, since we first drafted the scope of work. So I'd like to answer some of Kim's questions.
Okay.
Parker Street, we did make a commitment before town meeting. Although it's outside the project limits, we would work with the DPW and the town police to try to improve things on that street, whether it be resident parking only or something like that. We never got through that because we hadn't gone through the design yet, but there was a commitment made on behalf of the town to address those concerns. In terms of construction traffic, we had always made a commitment through the public meetings that there would be no trucking on the side roads. Construction traffic will either be likely out through Route 125, either through a temporary construction access or other means, but the intent is always to keep the traffic off of the neighboring streets. And also on the gate, Kim had brought up the gate earlier about the middle school. We had worked with that. That's going to maintain under the town control, whether it's the custodian or not, but the way that the gate is operated now will not be any different, other than the fact it will be shut at the end of the evening.
Great. Thank you.
Is there anything else?
Thank you.
I need 30 seconds.
You got it.
30 seconds.
All right, set my clock.
My name is Steve Fosher. I live at Parker Street. First of all, I think the town can do something more constructive for $8 million than put it into the middle school, okay? And these guys are sugarcoating everything. We're going to have lights that no one's going to see. We're going to have speakers that no one's going to hear. We're going to have traffic with all these spots. The first place people park is on Parker Street, because when the event is over, like all events now at the middle school, they load up Parker Street. Because when they get out of the middle school, they don't want to fight the traffic inside the parking lot. They run to their car, they're down Faulkner Road, they're down Parker Street, they're gone. They're not fighting traffic coming out of the middle school. Parker Street is a zoo in the morning, at night, and every time there's a activity at the middle school. Now, years ago, before they built this new fancy AstroTurf football field, they played varsity football at the middle school. No one would even buy your house if they come by your house on a Saturday. You see the baloney that you go through with these people. And it's bad enough with traffic, with people dropping their kids off in the morning, speeding up Parker Street, speeding down Parker Street, with kids walking on the street. And there's two big signs there that says, "Do not enter to the middle school. Bicycles only." Well, you may as well take all those signs down. We got more signs now on Parker Street than they have in Salem, New Hampshire. Parker Street now looks like Route 28. This guy's crossing, this guy's crossing, do not enter, stop, do not go through, take the through traffic, go down Faulkner Road and around to Parker Street, around to Main Street. We got big stencils on the street for bicycle lanes. $8 million. Do something to the public works, and it's already approved, but it's a fiasco for people that live on Parker Street, Faulkner Street, and Hemlock Street. But the do-gooders always have their way. Thank you very much.
All right.
My name is Steve Kennedy.
I'm Emily Kennedy.
We live on Beacon Hill Boulevard. We're going to piggyback on that. So Beacon Hill Boulevard is, if you look at the top left, so where I think the proposed bocce ball courts are going to be, that's the other egress. A little bit, if you put your mouse on, yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah,
See
little-
that? See that last tree next to the
To the
parking
left.
lot?
Yep.
Yeah.
So we're actually that house right there, right on the corner there. So I'd like to, I had my list, but then I'm just going to jump on some of these ones first, just so we kind of can flow a little bit better. The construction for the school, the laydown yard or the staging area for the expansion of the kindergarten is actually our side yard. They put a parking lot in there, and that's where all the heavy equipment was that they would fuel up at 4:30 in the morning. When they built that, I don't know if anybody has been over there after it rains, even the slightest bit, but the whole area floods, and that has actually ended up in our basement. So I know these gentlemen talk about this very fancy drainage system, but if you go back to their slide, it doesn't show how it affects our house. There's actually no drainage on that set of fields at all. So that was a concern of mine. This gentleman, I'm sorry, I forgot. I didn't catch your name. You mentioned something about an agreement for no heavy equipment on side streets during construction. So Beacon Hill Boulevard, you should drive by there, is the road is pretty torn up from the heavy equipment going back and forth. Our yard was actually, when the parking lot for the staging was being built, they used our front yard for a lot of their backhoes and excavators. So now our yard has permanent sink areas in it. And then as they were trucking the dirt in and out, my wife can speak to this. She works from home. She got to listen to that barrel down our street, every half hour. So they definitely did use the side streets.
Yeah, I mean, one of the differences, and I don't know if you picked up from, I made a slightly sarcastic comment, was that when the schools were built, the school department chose not to come to the town for site plan review because under the state law, they didn't have to.
Oh.
In this case, this is why we're having this hearing, to hear what you're saying,
Right,
so
right.
that we can mitigate these problems. So the process of this is much better. And
Mhm.
so I'm glad you're raising these issues.
No, absolutely. We
These are the things
appreciate
that
this
we
forum
want
as
to
well.
avoid.
It's
Right,
great.
so what Mr. Green said is there's an agreement for this project.
Oh yeah, no, and I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that if you look at, so there's an agreement that they won't go Parker, there's an agreement that they won't go Beacon Hill Boulevard. I guess it goes back to your comment of where are all these vehicles coming in and out of?
Yeah, where are they gonna go?
Oh, no,
You have
we're-
heavy equipment trying to get in and out, as well as pickup at 5 o'clock. You're cutting all these egresses out in these agreements. So I'd like to see how it actually does go.
And where the staging is going to be. That was a tough summer.
So we'll figure out the staging later on, and that's later on in the process. The heavy equipment during construction will not be going through the side streets. That's what I believe we're told. And then the egress, that we got to figure that out. So-
But if it doesn't go through these side streets, where are they gonna go?
With the,
And where are they gonna
the
stay?
construction vehevehicles?
Yeah, because there's other side streets around. Are they just gonna go to
They'll come
another
from
side street?
125.
They can create a temporary construction access.
Yeah, they'll
Everything's gonna come in off 125. The staging itself is gonna be on the site, so we're not gonna be interrupting or interfering or flirting with anyone.
That's your only way to get off,
The
is
site's
on
gonna be-
125.
we're gonna
Right, so
stage
they'll
and work
they'll
our way up.
they'll put a new dirt road or something that's not on this map, so that they can get
No,
in.
but it's gotta be near where the other one is, I'm sure.
Yeah, so somewhere over here, somewhere back here, somewhere over
From
there.
engineering perspective, though, that's not
Just
really-
just to get in and out.
But that's a long time to get in and out. I'm just saying,
Yeah. They do a lot.
Well, I mean, I think the whole point of this process is to come up with a
Yeah, we'll
solution
figure it
that'll
out.
work. I
Yeah.
mean, that's what we're here for. This may take a couple more meetings, but we'll come up with it.
That was also a reason why the site was when the design and trying to balance the cut and fills of the site, is obviously to lessen the amount of truck traffic on the streets. By moving the fill in the site itself, you eliminate a lot of different traffic, aside from a large cost savings.
Okay, great.
We're just going to second all of the parking issues as well. As Parker Street, we have days that we can't pull out of the driveway. If I don't leave in time to miss school drop-off, I can't pull out of my driveway.
All right, so are there any no parking signs? It's just open parking
No,
all the
we've
time?
actually brought this up to the North Andover Police, especially on like weekend game days and stuff like that, soccer games. That people, again, they don't want to park in the lots. They park up and down the streets because it's easier to leave. So we've asked the police anything they can do, because again we've
Not if there
been
are no laws
stuck,
on it.
and there's
The
nothing.
Board
they
of
can do.
Selectmen would be. I mean, we can talk about it here,
Yeah,
but that's.
I mean,
that's-
because it's an
awareness.
easy enough thing to do, to just slap on resident stickers and say at certain times.
Yeah.
I mean,
Mhm.
that's
Right.
not a hard thing to do at all, really.
Well, it needs to be a bylaw change, probably, which isn't hard, but
Yeah.
you'd have to have a bylaw change most likely to do that.
And just one final thing.
Which is doable.
So currently, I know when we bought our house, we knew the close proximity to the field, and we were actually really excited. You know, if a facelift is what's in order, I mean, it is getting a little run down. So we're on board with this. One of the concerns we do have, though, is there's natural barrier, we'll call it, of growth between our house and the field. And when, you know, if we're in our yard, we really can't see the field, and it's nice. Part of the plan is to tear up all the chain link fence and overgrowth, which the fence is, you know, it's worn out, it's in rough condition. But once you pull that out, there's trees that are growing right through it as well. So you're losing trees, you're losing all the overgrowth. We're going to be just, you know, the fields are going to be our yard as well. You know, and with the increased traffic through these fields, we're just really concerned about privacy and safety.
Especially with the picnic area, that's like, you know, it's not like a game for Little League flag football.
Right, and even with just that additional parking lot for the staging, there's just been a massive increase in, I guess we'll say loitering would be the best way to put it, at all times of night. So that's definitely a concern of ours, is that you pull away that natural growth, now we're exposed to everything that goes on there. So.
Yeah. So instead of, I know I called Monica today to ask about the plan, instead of just the chain link fence, we're asking for the consideration of a full privacy fence, because the chain link fence isn't really going to give us any privacy that we currently have. And I agree, it needs to be pulled up, the current one, and the growth to redo that. But we're as close as it gets.
Okay, thank you. Great. Anyone else?
How are you?
Yes, sir.
Jamal Saunders, 49 Parker.
Hi, Mr. Saunders.
I support this. I think these guys have been awesome. I'm going to selfishly say I think it'll be good. I have young kids. You know, I'm looking forward to it all. I love every comment that everyone's made. You know, they've opened my eyes to things I didn't even think about. I abut the lower field home plate, my backyard. So I lived through everything that everybody's talking about. Again, selfishly, I go to work really early, so I don't get to see all the school stuff. I think these are all things that can be easily worked out and addressed, you know, just with patience and open communication. My only main concern, I have like the oldest house in the whole neighborhood. It was built like 1890. I think the people that owned it like sold the land to the city for the school. It's set high, but my yard's low, so I have like ducks that swim already. I just want to know, I fully trust the engineering department. I think that everything's really going to work out well with what they're doing, because it's got to be better than what's there, you know, and with the seepage and what goes on, if they can help it, I think they will. I just want to know if there's anything in place or anyone we can go to if a butters actually have an increase of water retention in their home.
Yeah.
That's all. You know, just that if there's anywhere that we can, hey, you know, all of a sudden it's happening, worst case scenario, you know, I just want to know if there's, and, you know.
That's a good question. Is there usually, I assume there's usually a construction manager or a project manager with the project, right? Do you guys want to answer? Usually during the project of this scope, we'll have a project manager that is to go with that.
During construction, if there's a perception or there's an actual change in how things are operating, then bring it
I
up.
don't think it's gonna. I really have like all the faith in you guys.
And we also hire an independent monitor.
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. Oh good. Okay. All right. That's great because I guess because they just took sidewalks over and I didn't complain and cry. You know, my driveway's old. You know, but they raised the street. And so now my driveway is kind of a swamp too. But I don't care. I'll fix that on my own as when I'm ready to do my driveway over and stuff. I'm not. That's why I wasn't really concerned. Like I'll address that later. But I just with this being a kind of a bigger thing, it's my other side of the house that I really don't want to mess with if I don't have to.
Yeah,
You know?
there'll be a project manager, and
Cool.
that information once it's later in the project. Once it's approved, there's usually the project manager, and that person's usually available. You have their number. You can call them or call
Okay.
someone in the town.
One of the decision requirements that they submit paperwork indicating who the monitor is, they provide reports.
And a phone number and to be accessed.
I haven't I've lucked out all these years
Yep.
because I am elevated. They set the house really high back when they did it, so it helped me. But it runs off, and then you guys are increasing literally right out of my backyard. It's going to go up another foot. You know what I mean? So I'm just, now I'm kind of getting low man on the totem pole when
Sure.
it comes to water.
There'll be a person for
All
that.
right. All
Great.
right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
He's in favor of this project.
I have kids, let's go.
You're walking. You're walking home.
He's so sweet.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
See you 10 more times.
I'll
take him out of here.
Parker Street seems like a fun place.
Can I just make one suggestion too to
Sure.
the design team and whoever? When you put in the trees, don't put in the little puny ones because the kids will just jump on them and bend them down and they'll be gone within the first month.
Okay.
I saw it happen already when they did the middle school expansion.
Oh, really?
The trees they put in
Too
didn't
small.
last
Yeah.
because the kids play on them. So anyway, just a suggestion.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we, again.
When do you guys come back up?
You talked earlier about the value, back and forth, the tug of war that we have with money. So, trees cost money, and we, if there's money in the budget, we'll buy the biggest caliper trees we can possibly get our hands on. But that also is a value engineering type proposition where we have to look at all the different things, and we will present the caliper to you that the project can afford, and we'll make decisions. And if it means we have to cut the number of trees down from the 57 that we've planned, so a smaller number so that we can have bigger, healthier trees, then those are easy decisions to make.
Okay.
And the other thing that I'd also like to address too is that while we show 57 trees planted, there are other landscape plantings that will be here that are minor but important for screening purposes that we'll make sure we go through since it's been raised here so that we can illustrate how we can help in those areas.
Okay.
John, I have a question on process kind of thing. If this was a private development, we'd have a bond as recourse.
Yeah.
Things go wrong, whether it's water in people's, whatever. How does it work in this case? Because the developer's in town.
That's actually a good
right?
question, because
same
we'd
thing.
be bonding ourselves.
Right.
I mean,
How does that work?
The contractor will have a bond.
Yeah, that's.
The
what I was
contractor will have a
thinking,
bond.
Yeah.
The contractor will have a bond. So if the
Yeah.
contractor can't respond or is unresponsive
Okay.
to the issues that we believe as a team, because again, we're representing you.
Right.
We're here to keep the contractor honest, to do what he's under contract to do. So if there's a dispute and he's not doing what he's supposed to be doing, then we can pull his bond and
Yeah.
execute it independently of the contractor's own opinion of what he
Yeah.
thinks.
But that does presume a design that's adequate to relieve issues independent of the contractor. I guess like in regard to stormwater runoff, that statement having the contractor have the bond presumes the design addresses.
Well, and the
Stormwater.
design will address it, because you're not only having my engineering stamp certification, so my licensure is on the line, so I'm certifying as an engineer in Massachusetts that it works. But you're also having an independent peer review with their stamp saying the same thing. So by the time we're done with the design and the peer review, you'll have an ironclad promise that the drainage is gonna work the way it is professing to work.
Gene, what's a good time to come back for this, or what a good process going forward? Is this something we should have every meeting or skip a meeting?
I think, do you anticipate you'll be able to respond to the peer review comments by the next meeting?
When's, 2 weeks? Yes.
Okay, so we'll come back in 2 weeks and,
I mean, I think some of the stuff, one of the traffic might be a little bit harder, and, I mean, we even may want to go out there and walk around, and maybe at a time where the traffic's bad,
So
to
that's
get a
why,
sense of it.
that's why I said earlier, we had just begun the process to talk with the kindergarten folks about their traffic issues. We're inheriting that in some ways, because that was a project independent of us. But because we're now here on this site, we're also looking at that. So we're just beginning to peel away the layers of that particular issue. So I admit I don't have all the answers on the traffic.
Let me ask you, because you have, a lot of people have mentioned traffic. One of the things that that wasn't included in the packet was a traffic impact study. I don't know if you want something that intense or just, certain data, like indicating like peak data or data during games or things like that. What level of data would you find useful for your analysis?
That's a good question. I mean, you know, ideally would be all the things that you said, but practically speaking, because it's not a commercial project, we wouldn't have, you know, we wouldn't spend the money that we would spend on it if it were a commercial project. I mean, frankly, in the end, a lot of it's common sense, and doing, you know, a certain amount of due diligence, so at least you get your basic facts right, but,
And we'll, as I mentioned earlier, we'll come back at the next meeting with the data on the number of users that are projected, the times and the overlaps that might exist. We'll talk with the kindergarten folks to get their numbers on users, and we'll compare the data. And as you say, some of this is intuitive. If it gets to the point where the traffic analysis that we're presenting is too complex, you do have the option of getting an independent traffic engineer that could make better sense of it. Professionally, looking at this with my own trained eyes, I agree with you. This is not that kind of a complex traffic situation where this use is bringing a brand new set of daily trips. This is not like we're proposing a new store that's going to generate a certain number of trips every day. A lot of this is existing trips that are already present with the use. Obviously, the difference here is that we've got a little bit more robust programming intended because we've got fields that can be used longer. So that will be the delta, but the slug of users already exists. We just have to reconcile how bad your problem was to begin with. And does this project make it a lot worse or a tiny bit worse? Or not worse at all? And so that's where we are. Because of all the variables here, even if our project didn't come, and you still use the fields in their existing condition, you'd still have that traffic issue.
Yeah.
You'd still need to restrict traffic on the neighborhood streets, right? Because the uses are still there. So our job will be to present those numbers to you in a way that we could all discuss it and try to make sense of it.
Okay, great.
So we'll come back with responses to all these. We took diligent notes. We'll compare notes with you as well and come back with more information.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah. Who would have thought that 800 Mass Ave has been using it?
Wendy? These kids start out, and there's not that much space between the parking and this little walkway, but it's not even that much.
I'm there on every Thursday.
Yeah.
Yes, all right. Hey, it's already late. Everyone approve? 1874. Folks, if you're not here for this last one, then I'll ask you to step out. Feel free to continue to converse. Uh, 1874 Turnpike Street. Hi.
Good evening.
Welcome back. Where'd we leave off?
We were talking about what an appropriate zoning district might be.
Right.
Because we are surrounded by GB, general business, where the Stonewall Plaza is. And on the other side, the condominiums are sitting on B4. So intellectually, we'd probably all like to see it one or the other, but actually, Jean's done some great analysis, and she and I talked this morning. She shared her analysis with me. I think the Goldilocks approach here would be B2. It fits dimensionally, it fits with the uses, and Jean also shared with me the restrictive covenant that the Dunkin' Donuts on Osgood Street used with the town of North Andover to eliminate the 3 mortal sins of parking garages, automobile service station, taxi depot, and public parking garage. And we'd certainly be happy to exclude those by restriction. And, you know, even if there's others that your experience out on 114, you know, generates, well, maybe we shouldn't have this use either. We're opening to, you know, because, you know, goal-oriented, you know, we know we're trying to accommodate the dance studio, office use, perhaps some retail, and we're told that the building inspector believes that dance schools fit under retail. So.
Okay.
Yeah, so retail establishment is what he determined, and would be similar to karate, dance, gymnastic studios, things like that. As far as use regulations, and if you look at all of them, that's where he would place that.
Does the gym? What does a gymnasium come under? Like Planet Fitness kind of thing.
We have I think they've been put in as retail establishments.
Really?
We do allow for health fitness clubs,
Right.
typically in an industrial zone.
Yeah.
We have tennis and swimming broken out too, I think primarily to
Yeah, I
accommodate the
mean, at
Willows.
some point in time, we may want to go back and revisit it. I wouldn't do that for now. I think the approach that you've come on, I think is fine. I mean, I think you've done a nice job with that, so.
Yeah, athletic activity or you
Yeah.
know, athletic service. So it might be something for the future.
Yeah.
But
I agree. Choice Fitness is a different use than, you know, some of these karate studios. It's
Right.
just the magnitude of parking and students per session
Right.
is very different. So what I did was, last meeting we talked about, this came in really under general business predominantly because the Stonewall Plaza would continue one more parcel as GB. On the other side of this parcel is a 40B project, Merrimack condominiums, so although it's zoned B4, it's being used as a residential use. This lot is currently a village residential zoning district, and it's approximately 1 acre. So I started looking at each business use zoning district, B1, 2, 3, 4, and then general business. B4 would keep it consistent, at least on paper, with the residential use. However, that requires 80,000 square feet of minimum lot area. This certainly doesn't comply with that. B3 is 120,000 square feet, and it's Market Basket Plaza is, I think, the only B3 parcel. So then I narrowed it down to B1 and B2 uses, as well as general business. As you know, general business is the most liberal in terms of uses allowed by right. And based on the dimensional requirements for business 2, which are in the left-hand column here, I think the uses proposed, which are an office-type use and a gymnastic studio or dance studio, would fit within the business 2. I've laid out all the other parcels. You should be fairly familiar with them because that's what the Knights of Columbus had got rezoned to as a B-use
Yeah.
parcel, and the size of those. So it seems to me either general business or business 2 are the least impactful in terms of zoning changes. And so what I provided was the use table, which just calls out these uses. B1, those are kind of random throughout town. It, I think, occurred when the 72 zoning recodification went in, so the old center, the brick store, the hay scales parcels, Joe's Variety, there's like where businesses existed.
Yeah.
Fajetta Florist is B1, so they're scattered somewhat throughout. However, in B1, business and other offices is not allowed use, and one of the proposed uses is that. Professional office is, which is more like engineer, lawyer, that type of use, and that's not before you. And the retail establishment, of course, to fall under the building commissioner's determination for the gymnastic and dance studios. So that being said, we talked about possibly coveting out things like the auto and vehicle repair body shops, auto service station, taxi, bus garage. But here's a really succinct way of looking at any others that you think potentially you'd not consider for this lot if you were to rezone.
for eating and drinking establishments, I assume restaurants. What's the are drive-throughs allowed?
Yeah, because they're not specified that they're not allowed, so that would be.
So that's
So we could put
that'll
it,
be-
you know,
that'll be-
no drive-through.
That if it were to be eating or drinking, then it would not, the covenant restriction could be excluding a drive-through.
I don't know if that's something people want. It seems to me if that would be consistent with kind of how we're approaching the
Yeah,
CDD and the
Because it is a
general-
1 acre zone, and
Right,
it's
it's pretty
exactly what
small.
we talked about earlier.
Right. So I'd be in favor of no drive-through restaurants
Yeah,
again
and
if it's
I
a.
would say, a lot of the discussion on the Dunkin' Donuts on 125 was about queuing, and
Mhm.
they actually asked for a parking reduction improved with the drive-through. And the queue, it wouldn't get onto 125, and I think everybody has seen that queue does on occasion get out to 125, so.
Right.
I think they were about to make our parcel as well.
Okay, so yeah, if we could do no drive-throughs.
It's just, I am not advocating the choppy zoning. The
Well, you're
master
gonna
plan
have a
process was.
problem anyway, and I mean, we've talked about that for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I was
is
hoping to fix it.
Rationalizing, I mean, just the fact that you have business to cover both office use and truly retail use, and then how do you deal with service use? I mean, at some point in time, we ought to probably step back, but this feels to me as a clean, fairly simple way to do it without doing something that just sticks out like a sore thumb, I think. It's,
So the uses between B2 and general business are pretty consistent. I would say there's a couple more to covenant out for general business than B2, so.
yeah, so,
It's,
I like B2.
I like me too.
okay. Okay, so there's actually a draft warrant article that's very simple. Find it. And I really used the template of that same Dunkin' Donuts to create it. So it would drop in here, business two, where the red X's are. The zoning map is what's being amended, not the bylaw narrative. And that would be the map that I would show.
And would the covenant be something that's also presented at town meeting? And I think people would want to know that.
Yeah, that's
that-
typically what we
Yeah, what-
It would be drafted.
Or drafted and
Yeah,
just presented.
what I would do in the next month is draft it, circulate it for whoever like, I think you have in-house counsel now. right?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Yep. And we would sign it and deposit it with the town clerk. And it, because under the statute, it provides for like conditional, it would
Right.
be,
Right.
it would go into effect assuming that the rezoning took place.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Good.
Let's
That's
do
great.
that. Make it so.
So I would say we would not need to hear this at the next meeting, the 5th, but once the public hearing starts, we put it on right
We'll
away.
be back.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for, appreciate it.
Thanks for sticking it out.
They requested to go last.
Yeah, what are
they-
they
they-
gonna-
Think
they
about
are-
that again. Think about
They-
that next time.
They are residents, so they're very interested in
I've had a cough and a cold. I actually enjoyed the last one. That was Thank you very much.
All right.
I'm gonna make a motion to approve the minutes from January. Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Wow.
Yeah.